Guys, so welcome back. It is David. I brought a friend with me today, and we're gonna have a very interesting conversation. First up, though, holy smokes! I forgot my magazine. Someone get me a magazine. Can you get the magazine? Get the magazine. Oh wait! I got it right here. Oh, I got it right here. It's fantastic. But anyway, just so you know, we put out our 2023 strategy guide. We got to throw this in there. And it's fantastic. We've gotten a lot of kudos. The mail went out. Those of you who already ordered it, most of those have gone out in the mail. And we got a little thank you note and a free gift. And the first 204, I believe, exactly were signed. But it's really fantastic. You'll see some bios about me, Alex, and Dennis, and our favorite strategies. We have a bonus Keno strategy. And we have 4 of our popular strategies, our grapefruit strategies for 2023. And the first 204, they sold out in about the first 48 hours from the time that we promoted them. So we're going to be doing this on a quarterly basis, so stay tuned. It should be pretty fantastic. But today, we are going to talk about a subject that's not often talked about, but it's a great subject for us to talk about because we're an independent, organic organization, and of course, we're advocates for dealers primarily, but we respect the casinos. But a lot of casinos, they don't like talking about this topic. It's kind of its own thing, and it's basically how cheating works, how cheating is stopped. You know, who's watching who. And we do have Brian now. Now I'm going to give you, let me introduce you first. So Brian's been working with us. He has been in gaming for longer than me, sir.
No, impossible.
He's older than me, just so you know.
About like 4 minutes.
Oh my God. So 37 years. So 36 years.
Yeah,
So 36 years in gaming. And of course, because we came into business about the same time, and for many years it was sort of this, I wouldn't say the same experience, but it was similar. You broke in at the El Cortez or the Golden Gate.
Right.
I went to the gate, you went to the El Cortez.
Right.
We both broke in with dice, essentially,
Yep.
even though I started mucking roulette for a couple of weeks, but then I moved to dice, and we both dealt a bird game.
Yes.
I mean, El Cortez is just all about the bird game. So our experience and where we were, a lot of it sort of crisscrossed, even though, we probably interacted with each other as small as Vegas was back then.
Yeah. Either I was playing on your game, you were playing on mine, or
something like
right?
this.
Yeah.
Because we all played, or we went to the same clubs, had a lot of the same, because it was really a small town. The people that work here, I mean, now there's millions of people here, but back then it was really not so crowded. You could get across town pretty easily.
Right.
And
we all wore black and whites, most of us.
Yeah.
So we could tell each other apart in public.
Yeah, 100%.
Where do you deal? Where do you deal?
Yeah, everybody, we would walk around with our aprons, you know what I mean? It wasn't like, it was very social. Now, you just, obviously it's become more corporate. Yep. The reality has changed quite a bit. And Brian helps us with training at the school. And we can't go into exactly his role specifically because you're here on your own. You're representing yourself. Okay, yeah. But he's had a wealth of experience. So we want to talk about, so first thing I want to talk about, which is very interesting that I found out, I used to have a friend of mine who worked in surveillance many, many years ago, and our careers sort of crisscrossed over time. There was a moment we worked at the Fitz together, and then we worked at Argosy together, which we shared. Yeah. We worked at different Argosys, but we were part of the Argosy experience, opening casinos in the Midwest, basically.
Yep.
If Louisiana can be considered, Louisiana is south, so really not Midwest for me, but. And so I learned a lot about surveillance without actually working in surveillance. You have worked in surveillance, at least for a short period of time.
Yeah.
And the one thing that surprised me the most was that most of what surveillance does is not about the players.
No.
It's about the employees.
Yes.
It's following the money.
Yes.
And the money is the drops, the cans, the cash, the coins, and watching the money move around the casino.
Right.
All right, so before we get to I'm going to share with you some really good stories. By the way, I'm going to share with you the most honest, blunt. I'm going to share with you a story about our Argosy no longer exists, so I can talk all this shit I want about Argosy, and I feel like I can finally let this story go, because those of you that follow us on Patreon, I shared with this story a while ago, but it was a little filtered. I'm going to go completely unfiltered and tell you how I ended up losing my job as a pit manager working at Argosy Casino. I was in the middle of a brutal investigation, man.
Oh wow!
You have no idea. And but I'm going to share that with you in a little bit. But where were we? All right, so yeah, so the casino is very focused on watching the money,
Yes.
and not so much on, watching the people. Is that
Right.
where I left off? Holy
Yep.
crap!
Yeah.
I just
That was
think
about that,
and the people that are cheating the casino are more often the employees.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Those are the people who, and in my life, so together between us, we have 69 years of experience. And
Right.
we have come across, so in both of us, we have very few stories about players cheating. Like, there's all the same cheats that when you've heard of, like, if someone takes money off the pass line and runs out the door, like it's a contract bet, or someone pass posts and silly stuff like that. There's a lot of that. There are people that try to roll over dealers and get them to, give them their money, and talk smack and try to make claims and cheat in that way by lying or those types of things. And that's all day long, every day. But the number of people who substitute a shoe, like an actual blackjack shoe, who corrupt a slot machine, it's really rare.
Yeah.
It's incredibly, incredibly rare.
Switch out the dice.
Switch out the dice,
Use
like
magnets on the roulette wheel.
magnets,
Right?
or you know what I mean?
Right.
It's never a thing.
Right.
Because I know that, like, there's all these there's all these shows that you'll see, and they try to profile like the biggest cheats that ever existed, but it's all kind of BS, dude. It's all for sensationalism. It's all for the drama of it all, and many of those types of things just like you don't see those. There's like one instance, and they made it into a movie. You know what I mean? But it's not an everyday thing. One person I have found, and this guy straight out of the bayou in Louisiana. And he's a big, tall guy. I mean, he's looked so out of place to begin with. And he had this idea of how to put a little pitch tar, where the things they use for baseball,
Yeah.
on the dice. And so he was trying to slide a dice. And the minute the dice left his hand, you could see there was this like gluey thing, the sticky tar that got released onto a die.
Yeah.
And, he perped his ass. I mean, he was just so stupid. You know what I mean?
Obvious, yeah.
So what we're going to do is we're going to share some stories for you. But first I want to, I'm going to kind of fill in a little bit of surveillance itself and give you kind of a bird's eye view. So surveillance is not as sexy as a lot of people think. So those of you who are looking at becoming a surveillance operator, let me just say, like, surveillance on its own is reports,
Yes.
getting calls.
Yes.
You're following up on, someone says, hey, we need a camera, there's either money moving or there's money in play. You watch it.
Right.
99% of the time, there's not a lot going on.
No. We're opening up this game.
Or open a game or close this game.
Okay.
And then because a lot of it is gaming commission requires certain types of accountability, right?
Right.
So a lot of your job would have been that.
Yeah, it's regulation stuff.
It's all regulation stuff.
And they watch us.
Okay.
So they have a camera on the room, so they know what we're watching.
Oh, really?
So if the drop's going on and they see someone leave that station, it's trouble. It's a lot of trouble.
Okay, so like they literally. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So so gaming is watching surveillance.
Yes.
Surveillance is watching the floor.
Yep. Where I was in Indiana,
Mm-hmm.
gaming had an office and they had a couple TVs and they had access to every camera, but they also had a camera on us.
Right.
And when I was there, nothing ever happened, but I was told, hey, if because I was a supervisor, and whichever officer was watching, say, the drop that day, they weren't allowed to get up and go to the bathroom unless somebody relieved them and they could physically see, because we had to have all of those cameras that were
at all times
in tune to the drop up on the screen
and ready to go.
Had to be there.
So I mean, I'm just so curious. At some point, I would love to have someone, even at a higher level, so to help us understand, like, why, like, you know what I mean? Like, I get it, like, just trying to find the money, but if there's what's the live? You have people walking into Walgreens and walking out with the whole store, and no one even cares. The idea is to let them do it.
Right.
So like if it's, the casino, first of all, like a lot of the stuff that's being watched as far as the checks in the chips, you know what I mean? We call them checks, by the way, because they have that, but you know what I mean? Like who cares? So I mean, I know that you care. The casino doesn't want money walking.
Right.
But you have so much security. You have people on the floor, people actively watching these games. So you have a dealer. If someone's going to do something on the game, a dealer can be like, hey, there's a robbery in progress. You know what I mean? Like,
something, right?
But can you imagine and I get it having surveillance, so you have people with a bird's eye view, but then gaming's watching surveillance to make sure that all this procedural stuff. Why wouldn't the casino just take their own liability? Like I feel like there's all this redundancy.
Yeah.
That's lost. Can we have that at Walgreens, by the way? Can we do that? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, can we? Okay, because I feel like that's an easier target.
Exactly,
Like casino,
yeah.
people. That's always the thing that I've never understood with casinos. That casinos seem like a really difficult target just to begin with, right?
Yeah.
I know people that have made off with incredible amounts of money. That's actually true. There's a very famous story about someone who heisted a Brinks truck, and
At a casino?
they literally picked up from a bunch of casinos, went to the airport, and flew their ass away. And the only reason they ever caught him is because they flew back.
Oh, jeez.
It's a true story. The guy was literally AWOL for I don't know how many years and missed his wife and kids or whatever and decided to come back, and that's the only reason they were able to bust him. In fact, I have a friend of our family who another Brinks incident happened, a much lower profile, and there were 3 people responsible for a truck, and they were picking up cash and making deposits. And of course, one of them wanted to pinch a little, because
Right.
you know what I mean.
Why not?
And you know what I mean. You see it,
Right, yeah.
you live it, you want a little bit. Like who's gonna miss a few $1,000,000 over here? It doesn't really, you know what I mean.
Wow.
But that's the most amazing thing. So let's look at it this way. So I have this conversation with a friend of mine so my friend went from security guard to surveillance supervisor. Then he started doing investigations for a really big casino. And then he became director of surveillance, and he moved on, and he became kind of a bigwig. But he has since, I'm sure he's, we haven't talked in a while, but I'm guessing he's retired, a bit older. But his excitement is doing the investigations, and almost all the investigations centered around employees. And the other investigations were employees and their families.
Oh, wow.
The number of employees that want to deal to their families, even with craps. So one of the investigations that he did was, an employee who is inviting family members, and just you can't lose as long as you don't make enough. You don't bet too much, and it's a busy game. It's the right circumstances.
That's
I'm a pretty quick crap dealer, dude. If I could have a family member come in and hook them up all day long, and if it's just about a couple hundred, you know what I mean? Like no one's going to notice.
Exactly.
It'd be really hard to follow that
Right,
money,
right.
unless you really know dice or you really know how to follow the games.
Right.
Then that's the other thing is most surveillance operators don't know any of the games. They actually they're instructed on certain components of the game that are like triggers where they watch for things.
Yes.
But as far as like the payouts and you know what I mean, like the deeper parts. 33 years a dealer, right? Okay, so I haven't been a dealer for a couple of years, so I can cross a few off. But in all the time I was a dealer, I was called down. Surveillance called down on me one time for a puck, and another time because they thought I flipped off a player.
Oh, wow.
I wasn't flipping off a player. I was flipping off another employee. You know what I mean? It's like, so like, you know what I mean? And
There's nothing wrong with that.
Right? Yeah. And they weren't even on the game. It was a dead game, and they were way beyond this bar. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And luckily for me, the employee was a supervisor, and we had a habit of flipping each other off. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But surveillance thought it was rude anyway.
Right.
But never about a payoff. Like never about. And I've dealt some big ass, fat ass bets.
Yes.
And no one's ever caught a payoff. And
right.
Listen, I've actually dealt a payout and knew right instantly I was wrong, because that's we've done that too. That's
You're
how
waiting
we
for
do.
the call
Yeah, no one calls. Yeah.
crickets. Right?
Crickets. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the puck, I got my hand on the puck, and they're like, "What are you touching the puck for?" Because I like the puck. It feels good in my hand. What do you want from me?
Slow day.
It was a slow day. It was a slow, dead ass day. I think it was the same day they called me down on the me flipping off the player. Luckily, I didn't have any players. But they don't know the games, and then you're going to ask like, how do they not know the games? What's the take on that one? Like, why do more? So there are some casinos now. We have been at our school, CG Dealer School. We've been training some. We have surveillance people come in. Like we don't point them out. Like, hey, that guy's on. You know what I mean?
Right.
But we've had a few that casinos have sent, and they come as if they're going to be regular dealers, but we know they're going back to surveillance, right? And they learn the games. They incentivize that type of thing. Like it makes sense.
Right.
Like why wouldn't you want them?
Right.
I had someone recently who I did some private lessons for, who is surveillance supervisor, and learned dice, literally learned dice. And they say, David, listen, I'm here for a special reason, and it's kind of helpful because I can give them a bird's eye view of dice.
Right.
Because they want to know not just how to deal it, what to look out for.
Exactly.
When I'm watching the game,
Yes.
and that's a little different.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's a different flow and the kinds of things, if you're looking for. So I was able to, do some private lessons and give them kind of that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
A little bit different experience. All right, go ahead. What do you got? You got anything to add?
No, but that's what I did, when I started surveillance. I kind of lucked into it as a friend of a friend.
Yeah.
Indiana Grand was already open. It was a slot house and a racetrack.
Okay.
And when they legalized gaming on land, this place decided to get table games, and that's how long story short, that's how I got into surveillance there.
Okay.
Right. And the surveillance director, she says, okay, you can come on in and help train my guys.
Yeah.
I need them to know all of the table games. It was
really?
like 2 months.
Oh, here we got tech support coming in.
All the
Is
table
that right?
games.
We might have to correct your mic, dude. People are listening to your heartbeat.
Ah.
That's better.
Well, that's
Look
good.
at you, buddy.
Like
Now you can talk. You're a professional.
All right. Now I can,
All right. But you are the benefit of actually knowing how the games work.
yeah,
So that's
yeah.
big.
But I never taught surveillance really.
Yeah.
When I taught some classes when we opened up the Argosy, surveillance would come down and I would show them some things, but I never really realized, hey, I should be showing them maybe a different way. They don't need to know how to deal.
Right.
They need to know how to watch the game, and
How to
that's
watch
how
the
I
game.
taught them. Like with triggers.
Yeah.
Inside hand, outside hand. Make sure both pucks are marked correctly.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Not going off the game, not going to your body, and just around like if there's a pass line winner, this is what you look at. This is why they're paying it out there.
Yeah.
Just stuff like that. So it was more moves.
More movement.
Roulette moves,
Yeah.
Blackjack, more movement. Now there was always one or two people on each shift that caught on really well, and I taught them the payouts.
Okay.
So there was like an ambassador for
someone who
for
could
every
watch the
shift,
game.
yeah.
If there's a big bet, they could
Yeah.
understand what's
Yeah.
paid. Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit better than somebody else for sure.
Yeah. All right. So here's a good question. The best time to rob a casino, Sarah. Put that out. No, you ready? All right. So what's amazing is how much effort is literally laser. You can step back. You don't have to be part of this conversation because they're laser focused. The minute those cans move throughout the property, it's amazing how much, everything is just on those cans. And when I say the cans, so they have this big cart. I'm sure you guys, if you're at a casino late at night, they have a cart. They pull out all the soft boxes, not soft box. They pull out all the soft count, all the bills that go into the boxes, and those are goes in a can. All the drop boxes that goes in a can. They have a cage that collects all those boxes. They have a security, and man, did they have a lot. They just everybody is laser focused on
Yes.
finding those cans to the casino.
Yes.
Which is exactly when Ocean's 11. You know what I mean?
It's a perfect time.
It's literally the perfect time, but. It's I find it very interesting. I'll be honest with you, especially now, to see, like what they're looking for, because a lot of people walk into a casino and they assume that they're watching you, but they really not watching you. I mean, unless you're literally wanted by Interpol and you come up on some facial recognition.
Yeah.
And most casinos a lot of casinos don't even have that kind of tech because they haven't evolved.
Right.
Some of the newer places do.
Yes.
Right. When you walk in, they have facial recognition now and things like this. But a lot of places just don't have that. And quite honestly, they really don't care about you specifically. Now, if you start raising trouble, or, celebrities will follow around, right? Because they have a duty to
Yeah.
to some degree if somebody
Right.
comes on and
Yes.
they want to make sure, because they're going to get a lot of attention. But unless you literally have millions of dollars that you're traipsing through the property with or something like this, there's no need to care where you are or what you're doing. You know what I mean? Unless if someone reports you as suspicious, that's different. Then they could put a camera on you, and they could follow you everywhere, literally everywhere, wherever you go. Not the bathroom, though, right?
Not the bathroom.
Not the bathroom.
That's the only place. Or
Yeah.
and one of the HR offices didn't have one. For some
Oh,
reason.
really?
Yeah.
Oh,
But
really?
listen, we were like 2 blocks away from the highway.
Oh, so you
and
can
we
get a good getaway.
We had coverage out there.
Oh, really?
We could zoom in on a license plate at the gas station.
Oh,
It
my
was like
God.
2 blocks away.
Oh,
Because
my
people
God.
would go. That was the only place. It was the casino
Yeah.
and the gas station there.
That was
where
it.
I was.
Yeah.
And they would go there. If we wanted them
Okay.
for some reason.
Yeah, you could follow them to the gas station.
You
Be
know,
like,
and they
dude,
would report that license plate.
we
to
need
the,
our money back.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're like, hey, that's interesting.
Yeah.
They follow you when you're leaving. That makes
Yeah.
sense. You know what I mean? When they follow you out the door and they follow what direction you went.
Right.
All right. Well, here, let's pause for a second. Do we have any questions? Is there anything going on in chat? We got some great stories. You guys got to hang out. I got some really great stories. In fact,
No actual questions yet. Well, the question was for me. It was, Dennis,
fine.
what is the truth?
what is the truth? Only Dennis knows the truth. All right, so you ready? So I'm gonna have I have some interesting stories. I want to start with the earliest example of someone who was cheating. And I never even thought this was a thing, but so Debbie Reynolds used to have a casino out here, and I hate kind of putting that. I love this woman. She was so fantastic. She used to have a little casino here for a minute. You remember?
Yeah.
At a convention center,
Right,
down
right.
from the Riviera.
Yeah.
And she would do this little after hours. Those of you who remember Denny Rose, she had this show, her own little show. It was like a little skit show. It was fantastic, and she had a very little audience. The tickets were a little pricey because it was a smaller venue, right? Really small venue, maybe like 100 people. I don't know. It was very small. And I invited my mother there to see, Debbie Reynolds, and she would, after the show, she would come out and she would literally say hello to everybody.
Wow.
She would literally stand there in the hallway. You didn't have to pay her. There was nothing. She just hung out and said hello to every single person that went by after her show. It was very cool.
That's cool.
And my mother got to meet her, and it was just a defining moment, I think, for her. But so a couple of weeks after we're at the show. I happen to live literally right down the street. I'm going home one time, and I see all of the Debbie Reynolds casino slot machines out in the parking lot.
Oh, jeez.
Literally with police tape around the
Oh, my God.
around the slot machines. Apparently, and it was interesting because Debbie Reynolds had to come out with a press release. Otherwise, no one would know. I didn't read about it in the RJ or the papers or anything like that. It wasn't on TV. It was literally just her parking lot was full of slot machines with police tape around it. And apparently what had happened was it wasn't her casino. It was her hotel and her place, but the casino, the slot machines themselves were run independently. And whoever the operator was of those machines had rigged them. And someone had complained to gaming, and they had come by and realized that these slot machines were rigged somehow.
Oh.
I don't know what the whole story, but she actually had to come out with a press release, trying to explain why all these slot machines were in her parking lot. Because you couldn't go there and play.
Right.
You know what I mean? Not that I played there, but you couldn't play any of her slot machines because they're in. And that was the first instance because I was still a pretty young dealer. I don't think I was working at the gate. I think I was working at the Gold Coast at the time. It was like my second job, and that was the first time I realized like how serious. Like they literally gaming came in. They found one machine, maybe, or maybe all of them. I'm not sure. And literally pulled them out, put them in the parking lot of the damn casino. That's not a good sign.
No.
When you show up to go to a hotel and all the slot machines are in the parking lot of the casino, you know what I'm saying?
That's a lot of work, too.
That is a lot of work. It seemed weird that they're in the parking lot. Maybe
Yeah.
they were like on their way to be transported to something else. I'm really not sure how that was the case, but I was so stunning. For 2 days as I was coming home, I'm pretty sure I was working at the Gold Coast because I go Barbary and I down to Riviera, and that was my friend was working there. They were literally out in the parking lot. I mean, it was a whole other thing.
Wow.
But again, it was an internal. Okay, so the very next cheat, all right, the very next cheat I run across is a keynote cheat. I don't know if you heard about this because it was happening. So they had just introduced the wands. They had these Keno machines with a wand. I don't know if you know Keno.
I don't play it that much, no.
Yeah. Really?
Well,
Do you know Keno?
Yeah,
Oh,
but
really? You know Keno?
when it was in the restaurants a long time ago.
Oh, okay.
Was it still in the restaurants?
No,
At
it's
Keno
been
Runners.
promoted. Oh no, it is in the restaurants. Yeah,
Okay.
so COVID whacked most of the Keno runners. I don't know what happened, but when it came back after COVID, not all the Keno lounges came back. Not the most profitable area of the
Right.
casino,
It's fun,
sadly,
though.
but it's fun.
Yeah.
All right, so this guy who worked at one of the company that makes, I don't want to say who the company is because we'd rather not have them sue us, but so one of the tech guys that would do the CPU, you know what I mean, for the R&D, it's supposed to be like a random number generator, whatever it is, the computer part of it that determines what numbers come up. He had rigged it so that if you did a certain types of sequences, you would do, lose, 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 win all of it, big jackpot, right? And so for a period of a couple months, everyone related to this guy who was this tech guy at this, the game manufacturer. He was literally responsible for creating the CPUs, was winning like outrageous amounts of money, like 80,000, 40,000, like ridiculous Keno jackpots. And they all just coincidentally happened to be related to this dude. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, of course.
And so, it did not go well for him.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I
Yeah,
bet.
no, the thing that casinos love to do, when they find an employee, they perp their ass. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right, so what's your earliest memory of a cheat?
Well, I don't really know what happened.
Okay.
I mean, they told us what happened afterwards, but
Uh-huh.
I think it was my second or third day at the El Cortez.
Okay.
Dealing and scared to death still, just shaking. You know, I was 21
Breaking in.
years old. I was
Lot
you
of
know,
hair.
Yeah, a lot of hair, right? Skinny. I weighed about 110 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah, but you know, it was my third day at my first casino job. You know, downtown Las Vegas. I was nervous. I mean, you're just nervous. All I remember, I don't remember too much of it. All I remember is we used to use a five-man crew,
Okay.
5-person crew.
So on dice, it's if someone sits box, so all the dealers go around the table.
Yeah.
So you have stick first, you have stick second, third,
and
box,
then you sat box. Then you went on break.
then you went on break. So
Yeah.
5-man crew. Yeah.
The box person
Wow, you
actually
had extra
stood
person.
up.
Okay.
They were
yeah,
standing
yeah.
because they just wanted an extra person. You know,
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
game,
yeah.
in case you know one
It's
of us
the way
got
that
fired.
they cheated. They saved money on a supervisor.
Yeah.
And split the tokes another way.
Right.
Most dealers hate 5-man crews.
Yeah,
obviously.
we didn't know then though. We just
Yeah.
thought, we're
Yeah.
just getting more practice, you know. But
Welcome to
really
El
it was-
Cortez. Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm just sitting there dealing. All of a sudden, it's like 3 guys come into the pit from the game, and I was, that's over. It's over.
Oh, really?
I'm done.
They
Here
thought
we
you thought
go.
they were after you. They were
No,
just coming in.
Either that or there was
Yeah.
going to be a shootout. There's
Oh,
going to be a
really?
shootout, you know?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know. I
Yeah.
didn't know. But they grabbed the kid that was sitting box, who was a dealer, and picked him up. All I remember is his face being slammed down in the prop box, and they cuffed him and
Took him out.
took him out. And it happened like within 4 seconds.
Yeah.
And we were just all just standing there like, what?
Yeah.
The box person said, "Get a roll."
Dude.
Just like that.
I mean,
you know?
I've seen a bunch. So is that the only person you've seen perped as an employee?
No.
your time?
No,
Yeah.
there was another guy. Years later, I was a pit boss,
Okay.
and we had a box person, and I was pretty proud. I was in on the catch. He was taking purple checks off the game.
You were in on the. Oh, you just knew they were going to bust him. You
Well,
weren't
no,
in
I
on
was.
the cheat.
I knew something was going on. He was.
Okay.
I just knew it. Just the way he acted for a couple days, and he always wanted to sit box. It was a backup pit boss. He was like my backup. He was sick, but he was always sweating, and I was like, something's up with this dude. And we finally realized that for a couple of days he was taking purple checks.
Oh, really? Purple
Yeah.
is $500 checks, by the way.
Yeah. He'd put a Lambert underneath one of the ones in the back.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And he would just
Yeah.
sneak him out. Okay, so I have probably I've seen a lot of people perped who, I wasn't sure what everyone did, but I've absolutely seen dealers arrested, taken out of the casino, and it's hush.
Yeah.
Like, you know that they did something.
Right.
But the thing about Vegas, interestingly, is like they don't share a lot in the news. Like, you don't know, there are a lot of people that come to Vegas to jump, and you don't hear those stories.
Right.
Because the casino specifically and the RJ and all the local media, they avoid those stories. Like, that's not a thing.
Yes.
And unless you're like in the business or running these casinos, like, you know, we don't want that, you know, going around, let's just say, because that kind of taints the experience. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But if you look out your windshield and there's like a streak going down, that's someone's ass last week. You know what I mean? On the way down. David just throwing it out there, bro. Okay, so you know, I always wonder, like, can we pivot just really quickly? Like, if you want to choose a casino, like, why would you glide down the side of the Luxor? Aren't there better places to, like? Because, I mean, isn't that kind of a painful slide down? Do you think you're going to make it? Do people do that and just think they're going to just slide down the side?
Has anybody ever
pyramid?
made it? Is it like
Nah.
going like in a barrel over Niagara Falls?
No, I think you
No.
just stain the glass on the way down. I think it's just a really long, ouchy kind of experience. But anyway, that's just me. I feel like
hot too, right?
I
It's gotta
feel
be
like
hot.
there's it. Yeah, 100%. Someone, you know, my understanding at some point, I don't know if this is even true, is of course the rumor is someone put their face in the sun. You know what I mean? In that Luxor beam.
Oh, God.
I can imagine that beam's going to melt your face off pretty quick. No, I guess that's one way. That could be could be an interesting way to go. No, anyways, I digress. Okay, moving on. All right, so here's the thing, right? I have a story similar to that because that happens a lot where box people get greedy.
Yeah.
They have nothing better to do. They got their hands over the chips, the
Yes.
bank. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Yes.
And it's so easy for them to just sort of manipulate. So we just had this cowboy at the Rio. This is a story a lot of people from that work at the Rio knew. And
player? Or
It was a box person.
Box person?
Box person
Yeah.
would come in wearing. We called him a cowboy. People that remember the guy, he would always wear cowboy boots.
Oh, okay, okay.
And so I guess he had, he would every day, one blackjack, he would like get up and do this. And then he would get up and do this, and then get up. And basically what he did is he had this little sleeve sewn inside his sleeve.
Nice.
And he would move the chip in the first part, and then it would go in the second part.
Right,
And,
right.
but he was smart enough not to do it all at once.
Right,
He would just do this, sit back down,
Yeah.
get back up and do this.
right.
Sit down,
Wow.
get back up, do this, and slowly he would just work this chip down into the boot. You know what I mean? And so every day for a year or however long it went on, he managed to get out with one black check, all that, until finally they perped his ass, dude. Literally his ass. I don't think he had a good day. That did not work out well for him.
Jeez.
Because back in the '90s they were not gentle. Now
Nope.
they got to be gentle. They're like, excuse me, sir. Right this way.
Yeah.
Say they have to be. Everyone has to be very nice. There's no more takedown stuff.
No.
You can't do the takedown stuff. You got to just be like, excuse me, we're gonna just put you over here. You know what I mean? You're stealing way too much money, and now we're gonna. All right.
Jeez.
So that's my box person, which I assume there's like. So there's another box person that I used to have at the Imperial Palace, and he insisted that you shared your tokes until he was fired, thankfully. But he was never perped, he was never arrested. But I always felt like that was a big cheat, right? So I was working table job,
Yeah.
table for table,
Okay.
at the IP,
Yeah.
and had this one asshole box person who insisted that he get a share, whatever it
Wow.
was. And sometimes if it was a really good day, and he thought he should get a double share, because it was him promoting the bet. So if he had to get up from his seat, and he was able to get someone who was like the big tipper, who he felt like he was able to coerce them into giving money, and he was quite the scoundrel. Like he would literally be like, dude, why don't you just take that guy's money? This poor guy would like not know how to play. I'd have his money or change in the come. He's like, why are you giving that guy change? Just set it up as a bet for you. He doesn't know. He'd literally be talking about the guy right in front of his face.
Wow.
You follow?
Yeah.
Like, and he would run this sort of thing. And then guess where we met him after work to give him his share? Ellis Island. The very first time I go to Ellis Island was to hand off a toke envelope to this idiot on my very first day. Actually, was the very first time. Luckily, it wasn't a whole lot of money. It was like $50. But this dude constantly,
Right.
he was just old school asshat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I was always looking forward because I expected him to be arrested. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I always expected to just one day they're all going to come in and take this man out and save me. You know what I mean? From whatever. Because it was. You ever work a table job in town for dice?
Yeah.
Where you
Flamingo.
made your own. Flamingo.
Flamingo,
Oh
yeah.
God, you had like the best table job. Holy crap.
Well, when I was there, it wasn't
Wasn't as
the
big?
best, but it was
Really?
still good.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, Imperial Palace was not that good, dude. Let me just say, those days I think the best I ever had that was $400, and then the preceding days were like 12. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it like averaged out to like $60 jobs, some silly thing like that.
Yeah.
Not at the Flamingo though.
No.
Holy crap, you guys are great. I mean,
Yeah, it was. I don't know. I think it was about 150 a day, 200 a day.
when was this? In the early 90s?
89, 90.
Oh my God, it got
Yeah.
a lot better,
So-
sir. In the
Did it?
mid 90s, it was one of the best table jobs in town, without a doubt. When they moved O'Shea's,
Right after I left.
I mean, literally, they waited for your ass to leave, and then the job got better. Because O'Shea's ended up being, that was the way to get into
Yes.
Flamingo.
Yes.
You had to break in, you had to break in somewhere, then you would go to O'Shea's,
O'Shea's, right.
and they shared. There was no table.
Right.
No table for table. But if you got to O'Shea's into Flamingo, dude, you were set. You know?
Really?
Yeah, it was a fantastic job. I tried so hard to get into O'Shea's, it just never
Huh.
happened. The only job I got offered that was even close to that was the Dunes 4 months before they were going to implode the place. That didn't work out so well. You know what I mean?
Jeez.
Okay. Are you ready? So I got more, dude. You can go ahead.
There is a question. Now
Yes.
I had to take off my mic because it was causing some interference. They might
Okay.
hear me, so repeat the question.
Okay.
Real question, why is security so hard on advantage blackjack players and how are they escorted out?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, huh? Okay. So the question is, why is security so hard on advantaged players, and how are they escorted out?
Yeah.
Or
blackjack
how are they,
players specifically.
blackjack players specifically? Okay, so I have seen a lot of blackjack players, whether they were advantage or not were advantage. In fact, myself included, I was escorted out of the horseshoe one time for being an advantage player, when in fact all I was doing was winning more money than they wanted to part with. That's absolutely true. I will say this. So most supervisors are trained in how to spot or identify advantage play. And advantage play is people who are counting cards and they're running their money in a certain way, a very methodical way. And if you're a decent supervisor and you know how to run down at least part and stay ahead of the deck or stay ahead of the count, you can see how the person's betting is changing to reflect the count, right? And so what they'll do is typically, if a lot of times it can be handled on the floor, doesn't really require surveillance. They'll have surveillance, maybe they'll call up and ask surveillance to watch the game. But in in the places I worked as a supervisor, someone will get wind of it. A supervisor will see this going on. They'll pass it on to a supervisor. And let me tell you, a lot of times it's so being an advantage player is not illegal, by the way. Counting cards is quite literally not illegal. But remember, anything you do in a casino, it's private property. They can choose not to have you in there. As much as everybody's allowed in there, and they obviously want all your money, the minute they don't like you, you can go. For whatever reason, they can decide they don't like how you're chewing your gum. They can tell you to get the hell out of the casino. What I have always found is this is one of those things, advantage play, that supervisors are taught very early on. Look, we got to keep a lookout for this. The minute you see it, we got to make sure this player is escorted out of the thing. And so they make it a big deal the minute that they find it. And it escalates very quickly. And then there's kudos. Floor supervisor gets kudos. Pit manager everybody gets kudos for having found that what they call the cheat, at the table. And I'm talking from a player perspective. Now, from a casino's perspective, right? And this is one of the things. It's clearly like if you become a destination for advantage play, it might not go well for you. And some casinos have been hit up for a shit ton of money, let me tell you. And so you can't let that start. You can't let people think that they can come to the casino. So I think like as much as often casinos want to be very overt about pushing those people away and letting them know this is unacceptable behavior, because if it's not, and they think there's a path forward, guess what they do on the internet now? They share it with literally 10 friends, you know what I mean? Next thing you know, you have advantage play up and down your casino floor, no?
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly it. You know, if the advantage players know that you're an easy target, you're going to get hit, just like you said. So you have to, like you said, casinos have to stay ahead of that. Make it aware that they're not a place that they're going to be welcomed.
Yeah. There's a lot of counting cards.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people. I would say that's more common, but it's not illegal. And even though it's a cheat from the perspective of from the casino, you're literally just counting the cards. You know what I mean? Like you're a human being. You're seeing the cards. You know. I mean, I played Pai-Gow card. A face-up Pai-Gow, and you see all the cards, what everybody's got, you know how to play the hand.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like there's some of the advantages are really easy to take advantage of, right? So like I used to do a soft count. I won't go into that a little bit and adjust my bets accordingly, but try not to be too obvious and also try to lose. Not really try to lose, but it's hard to do. Listen, a 6 and 8 deck too is really, really difficult to count down. I know that there are people that can do it. They got to push those people back. They just don't have no choice. So we're at the school today. This is a really good kind of other pivot, I guess. And one of the things I tell our dealers when they're starting is there are players like you that are looking for weak dealers. And when I say like you, I mean literally anybody in a position who has presence, and because you walk up to a game, let's say, right? And even if you don't mean to, let's say you go up to a dice game. You throw out $50 in the come, and a 3 craps rolls, but you don't pay attention. And then the next roll, it's an 11, and you're thinking, what happened to my come bet, right? And let's say you have a really weak dealer, and the dealer is like, well, I don't know. They just picked it up, okay, because on 3 craps, you lose a come bet. This is just a very small example. But you having some presence, by that I mean, being a little more aggressive and confident, say, hey, you took my $50, when in fact it's you that, you're not recalling correctly what happened because you either missed it or got distracted, whatever the case is. And if you have a weak dealer, that dealer will be like, oh, they'll set you up $50, because they don't want to deal with the issue. They'll literally give you the $50. You know what I mean? And we train our dealers to absolutely make sure of what they're doing, be confident in what they're doing. And also, the minute they make a mistake or feel like they made a mistake, or if they have a customer call them on something, it's not the dealer's point to be an adversary. They pass it on to a supervisor. But here's what happens, right? And me and Alex found this out. So if you're a player and you find out that when you buy in with a certain girl at a certain table for an odd amount, and almost every time she gives you an extra $1,500, guess what? You're going to share that with 18 other thousand people on our Discord server, and that actually happened. Literally, we had to be like, hey, you know what I mean? This is no good in here. Because, with the internet now, can you imagine you find some dude who's paying, 200 to 1 on some bet instead of, even money, you're looking for that. And a lot of dealers when they start, they're very weak, they're very nervous, they get rolled over really quickly, and it can become an issue unless they're sort of locking it down. But that leads into the whole counting cards. What's interesting is when you see these videos, because I watch some of the YouTubers, they look for targets that are easier. They know what casinos, what dealers, what shifts to play on, what denominations to play. I mean, all of this becomes part of the strategy of being an advantage player. You're not going to go into a high limit pit, play by yourself, and at a place because they're going to walk you off, right? If you're trying to win too much money and you're obviously counting cards, I mean, you have zero potential, right? You're going to go to some local casino with less skilled dealers, with supervisors who really don't know how it works or what the hell advantage play is, and you're going to roll them for $500 a day. You know what I mean? Or maybe you just come every couple days or whatever it is, and it seems like an easy win, and you squeeze in, and that's how you take advantage of a thing. So that supervisor, if I'm a supervisor, I'm going to make it really obvious that you're the guy. I'm going to embarrass the shit out of you so you never come back to my casino and do it again. And that's really why that happens. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Right? I mean,
Yep.
do you agree? Basically?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. We had when I opened the Bell, one of the meetings, they're up and down. So in the 90s, mid-90s, early 90s, mid-90s, when a lot of the casinos opened, the riverboats and things like this started going Midwest, and they were bringing, Vegas people out there to open. And that was a big deal because locals were finding ways to really take advantage of these, new dealers, brand new dealers, in many cases, new supervisors.
Yes.
People with half of our floor supervisors at the Bell were literally people from with 3 months experience at another casino. That's all they had.
Right.
That's what they had to go with. Because we had to hire local. I don't
Yeah,
know
that's right.
Right? You had to hire local. 90% of the casino
that was
had to
like
be
a deal.
local. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the deal with the state. But how do you hire? You can't hire any experienced local, dude. So everybody is just brand new. That's a casino you want to hit up if you want to do an advantage play, right?
That's right.
So that's the thing. Then there are people that talk about advantage play on dice and other means like that, and that's more of a function of the game. Right, it's much more obvious when you're setting dice. Setting dice is more obvious in some cases than counting cards.
Right.
You can do counting cards. You can do subtly. When you sit there setting the dice, that's obviously a physical thing. You have to set. We know who the setters are. You're right.
Yes.
And there are casinos, by the way, who there's casinos in Colorado you can't set at all. There's no setting. There's a sign. There's no setting. You gotta you can't do crap. And here in Vegas. It's so interesting as a someone who with a school and who has these relationships with the casinos also I've been a dealer, right? And I have seen things recently, especially in the last couple of years, I thought I would never see in my entire life when it comes to how they address the potential to cheat. Like the dice. I have literally have you ever seen So we are at Binion's downtown,
Okay.
and Jet's getting a great roll, and the supervisor takes the dice off the table and mics up the dice in the middle of the roll.
And yeah, you were telling me about that.
Mics up the dice.
That's just so.
I was so stunned.
Yeah, that's.
But they can do that. They can actually take. So in all of my years, I've never seen them remove. Even to this day, even after that, I've never seen them switch dice. But I know it's happened. I've been told that it's happened, where someone has literally taken the dice off the game because they're afraid of cheating. Listen, it's not a thing, okay? So like as far as the dice, switching the dice means nothing. Like literally in my eyes, it means absolutely nothing. I was on a game one time that gave away a shit ton of money at the Gold Coast. First they switched the bowl. They switched the bowl, dude.
Yeah.
Like the bowl, you know the dice bowl?
Yeah.
They switched the flipping, they literally
good luck.
took the dice out, took the damn bowl
good
because
luck.
the bowl was,
Was it a Thursday?
I mean, it might have been a Wednesday, bro. Then they switched the stick. They switched everything but the damn dice. They never touched the dice themselves, other than moving the bowl. They literally there was even one instance where they tried crediting some of the high limit chips. Like they were, they literally did everything to so they came in with a credit.
Yeah.
And then they came in with a fill, and then it came with. So they were trying to, to change up the pace of the game.
Yeah.
By you know what I mean, having
yeah.
security come in like
Right.
every 10 minutes to either give us some chips or take some
Yeah.
chips away.
All the things that bring us 7 out.
You know what I mean? Like
right?
anything that they thought they could do to like change the case. And meanwhile,
Jeez.
none of it did anything. Like
Yeah.
there was no. The boss even was, and I don't know if I this is kind of a. But the Argosy story is coming, dude. Argosy, we're gonna roast the hell out of that. But he had a salt shaker. He literally had a salt shaker from the cafe, dude. And it would always be there on the podium, the salt shaker. It was a white salt shaker right out of the cafe, just like what you would think, a damn salt shaker.
Right.
And every time you go in the pit, and I always assumed it was for like his salad, or you know what I mean, he put down a sandwich, a little salt, you know what I mean, like a little spice it up a little bit. Little Italian guy, like 4 feet 5 inches, Barry his name is, okay?
Yeah.
And he would literally he would salt the game, dude. As the game was getting hot, he would throw salt over his shoulder, which was great because he was so short.
Yeah.
That over his shoulder would go right onto the table, dude.
Right,
There was
right.
no missing. It was like right there, you know what I mean? And so we were literally like, there were piles of salt. We were like, there was literally like a pile of salt here.
Right.
Because you could see it. It was the big kind of salt, you know what I mean? And we had to it was getting in the way of the cave, dude, because he was just so nervous that the fix was on. I have never seen anyone, okay, so I have we teach dealers how to look out for all the dice protocols, right?
Yes.
Like how, to look out for someone swapping the dice. The dice should have a logo. The one number, the opposites are, we know what's the opposite on every die is
Right.
a 7, right?
Right,
So
right.
up, down, up, down, up, down, all is 7. If they turn them over, you have 2 dice, whatever's on the bottom is like the bottom of a 3 is an 11, the bottom of a 6 is an 8, the bottom of a 7 is a 7, you know what I mean? All this other stuff. So we teach them how to interact with the dice so we know it's our dice. They're all serialized. Like when I say our dice, the casino's dice. In all my time, the only thing I've ever had happen is I've lost a few dice and a few breastises, dude.
Yeah.
I've stolen some dice, dude. A few breastises. We've had a woman pick up all 5 dice and take them for souvenirs. Actually, that's happened twice. So one time from a woman and one time from a guy. The guy we got the dice back from, the woman we let walk, dude. I was stunned on that one because they have to write that up, dude. Those dice have to go back in the lock.
Yeah.
It's funny because, but they were about to have like a mental breakdown on the floor. She had been in this fight with her husband. She took the dice or ran out the door. I'm actually not sure exactly how it got followed up as a deal at the time. So it could have. I mean, maybe they chased her out. I don't know. We didn't see it from there. But I've never had someone replace a die that I know of, or they did it in so good that I didn't know.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or but then if they did, what was the outcome?
Right.
I would have known the outcome, right? The outcome is to win money. And so if that had happened, you would have thought they had won money. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Have you heard of anyone or seen anybody or know of anybody that's ever been able to successfully switch dice off the table?
Nope.
Never. And I don't know anybody.
No.
Like I have never met anybody. I don't know anybody. In fact, I have actually, it has happened for the very first time, for the first 20 years I was involved in gaming, I never saw a stacked dice on a table.
Oh, really?
And then I finally saw a stacked dice on a table. And not stacked against the green,
Right.
not stacked against the rubber, because I've seen
Right.
2 dice end up and get stacked. I'm talking literally 1 die right on top of another die. And I finally saw it. Finally happened to me.
Yeah.
But that you know how rare that is.
Oh, I think I've seen it once.
Okay,
That's it,
so
just
once, both of us
Yeah.
once. I mean, but even that, like I've never heard, seen, or of anyone fabricating like dice.
No.
You know what I mean?
No. Yeah, you're right. I think though. Can I just say it?
Yeah. Say whatever you got to say, dude.
If I'm dealing, if I'm box, if I'm
Yeah.
on the floor, I think like me and you both, we watch for that stuff though.
Right.
Even though it's never happened,
Yeah.
You know,
We were
still,
there. We stopped it from happening.
Well, maybe. I don't know. I mean, what do you think? Because,
No, I think that's
because
true.
you're very big on procedure.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm very big on procedure.
Yeah.
You know, protocols and all this
Yep.
and that. So
no, I agree.
maybe.
I
don't
agree.
know.
It would be hard.
Yeah.
Even with the most literally the dead-headed, dumb-eyed, you know, I mean, I've seen some really bad crap crews,
Yeah. Yeah.
and even those would be hard to switch the dice on. You know what I mean?
You think?
I saw a guy. I walk into a casino, not to be named, may or may not have been the Mandalay Bay at the time, but so I walk into a casino, and I don't know if I was with Dennis, so we walk in and we see this older guy. He's literally on the stick, and he is looking at the ceiling, and he's doing this with the stick at the ceiling, and I'm assuming the dice are there, that he has the dice there. No, the dice are out, dude. They're in front of somebody who's working out his bets, and apparently this guy is getting bored waiting for the guy to shoot. But instead of watching the dice, he's doing this thing in the air. And he's an older guy, like he would,
Was
you
he,
know,
like,
and he's at
touching
Mandalay Bay,
something?
or he might have been at Mandalay. He may have been at Mandalay Bay.
Oh.
Might not have been at Mandalay
Yeah.
Bay. But those dice, those dealers, you know, have experience. You know what I mean? He was just doing this, older guy. And I look over and I'm like, oh my God, those are the dice. And then I'm thinking to myself, who cares? No one's ever switched the dice anyways. You know what I mean? And by the way, there's a dealer there looking, watching. If the guy went to do something with the dice,
Yeah.
you would know it pretty quickly, no?
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Anyways, all right. Well, we got a few more stories. Trust me. I mean, but we're talking about how surveillance and cheats and things like this. I'll be honest with you. As much as people like, there's quite a few people who have anxiety about surveillance, and the thing is, surveillance doesn't give a crap about you.
No.
You know what I mean? They unless you literally are pushing a cart with money in it. You know what I mean? Or you somehow are doing something on a table that draws attention. Like if you walk into a casino without clothes, they're going to care about you
Right,
because
yeah.
now you're an issue
Yeah.
and someone's saying something. There's that.
Yeah.
If you walk in holding a gun on your hip or anything like that, now you're also a target. I mean, there's obviously things that you can do to make yourself a target. You follow?
Right.
But you just being around with your wife, you know what I mean? Even if you're like cruising, you know, somebody gave me this stupid story about how he was cruising. I'm like, dude, that's not a thing. No one gives a crap if you're cruising. By that I mean like going and looking for women, sir, going into the casino. And, you know, they thought that they were trying to shut him down and you know, that's not a thing. No casino gives a crap about that. That's all nonsense.
No.
Okay. I got a few more cheats, the most obvious cheats. So one of the ways where you know, people cheat is with their families. And we know, or friends, where their friends, where they get in cahoots and they're like, hey, if I show you some hole cards, you know what I mean? I'll hook you up with some money. You know, if you let me win somehow, I will hook you up with some money. And we have some, you know, we know people personally, sadly, who have been part of this dynamic over time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, you can never work at gaming again if you do that, by the way. You're done. If they catch you, they bust you. But it happens a lot. And it's amazing how often people think they can get away with it. Because not for long. And the problem I've always found is that people that start to cheat can't finish the cheat, right? So if you start out as a cheat and you work your family in, the next thing you know, it becomes this thing where even years later, your family's like, hey, we're short some money. Come on, let us just remember what we did all those years ago.
Right.
Let's try that again.
Yes, right.
You just
right.
can't get away with it. And eventually it comes back
Yeah.
and it bites you in the ass.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I have seen lots of dealers go to jail literally just for that. You know, Bellagio may or may not have been the Bellagio. Could have been the Bellagio. Might not have been the Bellagio.
Rhymes with Bellagio.
Rhymes with Halagio. But there was a famous crap crew, dude. 3 guys. I don't know, might have been 3 guys. They all went to jail, dude. They had to pay back money. They caught them, and basically someone would come up and make a bet, a call bet.
Yeah.
So call it a bet. Throw $25 in. Whatever rolled next, that was what they wanted.
it, right?
You know, that was it. Because the thing about craps is it's a verbal game. It's not always a visual game. Until the dealer does something with it, it's not a visual game. In blackjack and most other games, it's a visual game. If the money is, can they see this layout? Can they see right here? No. But you know, blackjack's got a circle. They can see right here. So blackjack has a circle. Here, let's use this dealer's circle. Blackjack has a circle, and all the money that's in the circle, that's what's going to get paid. That's the bet.
Yeah.
On a dice game, someone throws in some money, talks, the dealer books the bet, and you might not know what it is until
Yep.
the roll happens,
Could
and
be
now
anything.
and then the you know what I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
and then the dealer sets it up, right?
Right.
So like if the dealer's in cahoots, they could be like, oh, Uncle John, John, you know what I mean? Let's it's a 12 roll. Congratulations on your $25 12. Now here's the thing that totally screwed them over. They got really greedy.
Usually happens.
And so they parlayed the bitch. So instead of just paying some nice fat 12, they parlayed it, and then guess what happened? Listen, I hit the 12, and now I want to parlay to a 4-1 on the hop. No, you don't. That doesn't happen.
No.
You know what I'm saying? And so that's what happened. So
Wow.
they did that. And so they would parlay it, whatever hit, whatever the next. Like it's one thing to be lucky enough to hit a hopping bet.
Yeah.
Call it, and then but to hit the parlay onto whatever rolls next and to
Right.
move it and just congratulations, sir, what a genius. You know what I mean? That's some gypsy crap there, dude. You know what I'm saying? All right, well,
Jeez, they parlayed it?
yeah, they parlayed it
A
and then paid it.
$25 12?
Whatever it was,
Yeah.
wasn't always 12. You only needed $10. Some
Yeah.
guy would throw in $10, and usually it was like a two-way, I guess. It was a two-way bet, like
Okay,
a high-low,
okay,
something
yeah.
like this, or just a two-way bet, and whatever roll, they were like, congratulations,
Yeah.
you win, and then they would parlay it, and then whatever hit again, and so they were paying some dude off like ridiculous sums of money. So this guy actually made it to the news, and my feeling is Bellagio was like, listen, we want the names of the dealers and their children and their parents and how shame on what I mean. They literally made this.
Yeah.
They publicized this, and then they had to give the money back. Now Bellagio is a great job. Making 100, I think you're making $100,000 a year. Give or take, right? Something like that. Nice. They just gave it all away for $1 million.
Right. Yeah.
1 million. $1 million. Now I'm starting to think about it. I should get to work at the Bellagio real quick. Just do that. All it is 1 year, dude. Exit. Of course, because they had to pay the money back. You know what I mean? It did not work well.
Yeah.
The Brinks guy seems like that was the bit of genius. You know what I mean? Just park your Brinks at the airport, get on a plane, head out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was a clean.
That was good.
That was a clean getaway. Yeah, but the problem is you can't have kids, a wife. You can't have shit here. You know
Yeah,
what I
because
mean?
you got to disappear.
Yeah, you got to disappear.
Yeah,
You're not.
yeah.
You can't come back, dude. And if you come back, it's not going to go well for you.
Right,
You know what I mean? All right. Well, here's the thing. You ready? Okay. You got anything else to share, sir? You got any other commentary? What do you got?
No, I don't think so.
You good?
Yeah.
You good? We love Brian. Brian's been a fantastic part of our experience.
Thanks. Thank you.
And he's if you ever come down and you're going to learn dice from us, he's there. He's part of that. He's really been a fantastic instructor. What do you got?
You gotta repeat the question. Christopher Bird says, another question.
Okay, got a question
What
coming in.
technology does a casino use to change the pips on my dice as soon as I get max bet and the dice soon comes up 7 every time?
Oh, Christopher Britt Trucking says, what technology the casino has to change the pips on the dice as soon as he maxes out a bet and is looking for a different outcome? All right. Yeah, that doesn't exist, dude. Those malfunctioning dice have not made it. Can you imagine they're going to come out with? So we always assume that when a hole finder shoots, those dice are just simply defective. Like that's all it is. I mean, he's literally the best shooter anyone has ever known, except with certain dice that just aren't functioning on par. They're defective. We have to send them back to the manufacturer because clearly has nothing to do with hole finder himself. You know what I'm saying? And when we say hole finder, we mean Dennis. Dennis is fantastic. But Dennis will disprove every strategy ever submitted to the entire world. It's if you get through hole finder, you have found a retirement in Vegas. Like don't pay anybody $5,000. Just literally submit the strategy, get it through hole finder, and if it succeeds, you have yourself a retirement. That's your retirement plan. The one strategy that's going to make it through hole finder is the way to go. Now, interestingly, his favorite game, though, is dice. He's looking to get out on a dice game. And you know what I believe? One of these days, he's going to roll his own hand. Like, he's literally going to be his own. He's going to retire himself on a dice game. Yeah, he's by the way, he's a fantastic player. Like, he knows the game really well from the player perspective, so it's fantastic. By the way, Christopher Bird, dude, that guy loaded. He doesn't even need to play, dude. I don't even know why he's out there working a dice game. He should just retire and let the rest of us try to win our money. You know what I mean? And win our life.
Oh, good question.
Yeah. Another question. Who? Joseph.
Says, what is surveillance like as a job compared to dealing?
Oh.
Harder to get into, easier, better pay, worse, etc.?
Okay, ready?
Repeat the question.
Okay, so this person's asking, Joseph is asking about, a surveillance job. Is it easier or harder to become a surveillance job? What does it pay? What do you need to do? What's the opportunity to be a surveillance? All right. I know I have a good answer to this unless you want to.
No, go ahead.
So I have worked with a couple of casinos here in town on getting surveillance operators. I will tell you, there's a ton of opportunity. There are so many surveillance jobs that are open right now, and I'll tell you why. First of all, most surveillance operators to start, it's like 19 to 22, 23 an hour, depending upon where you go. Obviously, if you're working in a nicer casino, it's a nicer job. Might even be a little more than that, to be honest with you. I know that there are some Caesars Harrod jobs. They start about 21-ish. If you have some experience, maybe a little bit more. And right away, you work in a control room, right? And my buddy refers to it as being on the joystick. You know, you're going to get a certain number of screens and monitors that you need to watch and generate reports, and it's ridiculously. It can be very boring.
Yes.
You're isolated. You're in a controlled environment. As much as it sounds exciting, there's not a lot of noise and there's not a lot of other things. It's literally you just having to stay awake and watch these cameras. You do not have an allowance to like pass off or. Some people, they just can't stay awake, long enough to a lot of people get nixed because they just can't focus, and you really have to focus.
Yes.
So for the times that you have to watch something, if you're not watching, you're not doing your job. And so I will say there's a lot of opportunity. I know recently I had, not too recently, but there was a woman who started out as a security officer, wanted to become a dealer. And we found out this job that, where she could go to surveillance, and she instead of transitioning to a dealer, she transitioned to surveillance, and she loved it. She's a little bit older woman. She found it to be really up her, she liked the pace of it. She liked the people, and I'm not sure how far she's gone because I actually called her and offered her, now that she had experience, to kind of move her into a, basically a better, because she loves where she is. The thing is that there's lots of progression in surveillance, potential progression. So if you can get by the boring stuff, you can move on to, my friend moved on to investigations, which can be a lot of fun. There's all this compliance elements. He became a surveillance director, started making a shit ton of money. So there is opportunity, and those jobs pay well.
Yeah, and it's not even just the casino business.
Right.
Surveillance is everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere. Yeah.
Hospitals, law firms, big buildings, so
Yeah.
you can carry it anywhere. As a dealer, you can't.
Right.
You can't go deal at the hospital.
Oh, damn it.
No.
Really? Get those hospice people, get that money in there. What are you going to do with it, dude? You're a week away, man. Let's throw that some. What do you mean you got kids,
Right.
dude? Let's throw up some hands, bro. Let's get some dice. Can you imagine that? Just pull in a flippin' dice game? All right, I'm with you, buddy. I'm with you. But yeah, no, that's true, because that's why people get into security. You do security because they'll train you.
Yeah.
You could start a security. I have some veteran friends of mine that were living at the veterans. I say friend, people I knew. They were friends of a friend, basically. But they were at a veterans home out here, and this is right before COVID. The parking lots, the Binion's parking lot was still Horseshoe at the time. Was looking to get security guards, and they wanted vets specifically who. And they paid for, not only for them to get their CCW, but also to get their weapons, everything. It was literally like an all-inclusive package. And
Nice.
and you get paid more to have a weapon.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like as security guards. They
Yeah.
literally took care, 4 of them. They hired right out of so VA has a shelter. There's a home out here for homeless veterans. And they literally hired 4 of them right out of the thing. And they went to work, and they took care of the whole expense. The whatever, the gaming car, all the licensing, everything. They
That's
took care of
cool.
literally everything and transitioned them into the jobs. Perfect fit.
Yeah. Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of, we have quite a few casinos. So we have a direct line into MGM is always looking for surveillance, or there's a lot of MGM properties. Caesars Harrah's, of course. There's a bunch of downtown properties. And you know what's interesting? I find that people that get into surveillance initially, they love working at the downtown properties more. I don't know if downtown has more action, there's more craziness that's going on that you can pay attention to, or it might be a little more generic at the higher end properties. But of the people that I have worked from start to finish in this category specifically, they seem to enjoy some of the downtown stuff.
Downtown.
Maybe there's more crazy downtown, dude. You don't know.
They still have catwalks?
No more catwalks.
No?
Yeah, so that's like, so do they have catwalks? Yeah, of course they did. You
What?
could see them.
Oh, here?
Back in the day,
Back
you could
when I
see them
dealt?
if
Yeah.
you looked up.
Yeah.
Back when we started.
Yeah.
So you know what's interesting? Before they had cameras and surveillance, they would have dudes up on the catwalks, like literally just walking, and you could see them. And some properties still had it where you can look up and just see the
Right.
flipping catwalks
Yeah.
up there. And it was basically like, if you ever seen like a film set, the guys that, not a film set, but in the big movie houses when they had the spotlights.
Yes.
And then they were like dropping shit. Have you ever seen like the old movies about like the Broadway plays where they'd have some people up in the catwalks?
Yeah.
You know, dropping curtains and doing all
right,
this
right.
other nonsense. Well, that was what they had in Vegas. They had literally, Guido was up there, hey, dude.
Yeah.
You know what I
Smoking
mean?
a cigarette.
That's how they watched
Right.
the games. I mean, they didn't have a lot of the surveillance thing. Did you ever hear? Were you in Vegas when that dude? Where they were trying to teach someone a lesson in the closet, and the cops, Metro, thought that the closet didn't have cameras. Were you here then?
No, I don't
And
think so.
they used a certain baton,
Oh.
and they made entry to someone's certain.
Oh.
Did you hear about that?
No.
And they went to court. That's such a great story of mine. But that one you got to. So let's just say I'll do the short end of that. But so this is a little bit of a surveillance thing. So this happened at I believe it was either at, I think it was at the Horseshoe. It was at the Horseshoe. So there was a sergeant and a regular Metro guy. And there was this, I would say, I remember him being some kind of immigrant, and he cheated the casino somehow, but not for a lot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so these two officers took this man into a storage closet, which they assumed did not have a camera, which, as you know, does have a camera.
Right.
You know what I mean? And they proceeded to demonstrate how deeply a baton can be inserted in certain orifices. And of course, it went to court. It literally went to court.
All the way to court?
It went to court, dude. They literally this poor bastard. Let's just say he didn't walk well for a while. Like, he had to go to the hospital, things had to be worked on and stuff like this. But one of the officers, so the only reason I know about this story, this is a true flippant story. It was, by the way, this was profiled in the news back then.
Really?
It was a big story, dude. I mean, this guy took probing to a new level, dude. This was an alien probe this was like the next level after the alien probe. So let's just say one of the officers that was involved, who happened to be like, I think the sergeant, the guy that was in command, he was like this, heavy set guy, and I was a crap dealer at the Fitz at the time. The Fitzgerald, now the D. And we would be dead, and I'd be watching, our table faced this bar.
Okay.
This like video poker progressive little bar. It was a small bar, but some people. And at 4 o'clock in the morning, that dude was sitting at that bar, getting wasted before his 6 o'clock court
No.
day, like literally every single morning. Because it was
Wow.
interesting, because the news would come up, and you'd see him, and then look right down, and there's the guy getting just
Wow.
absolutely tanked, dude.
Wow.
Swear to God. I mean, I would. It was so fascinating to sit there, because this was Vegas back then.
Yeah.
There were people who literally did not give a shit. They just lived their lives however the hell they wanted, and they just assumed there weren't, because there was a lot of, listen, I knew someone in North Las Vegas, so I knew I could speed in I knew someone in North Las Vegas as a police officer. I could speed anytime, anywhere in North Las Vegas, and I did, because I knew that it would be fixed every
Right.
single time.
Yeah.
I had a friend of mine at the DMV. I never waited. Back in the day, a friend at the DMV, I never waited in line at the DMV.
Wow.
It wasn't until it got all computerized
Yeah,
and
yeah.
later on. That's how Vegas was. You knew
Yeah.
somebody. You have no, you know what I mean?
Right.
No accountability. You cut the line. You did whatever. And I was just a dealer, dude. I had a lot of friends in low places. That
Right.
was the thing. You follow?
Yep.
But man, I used to sit there, me and my friend Debbie, we would be like, this guy would just be getting tanked. We followed him one time after work. At 6 o'clock, we would get off at work at 6. I was a 10 to 6. So I guess kind of a really late swing,
Right.
kind of early gray or
Yeah,
something
yeah.
like this. And we'd follow him, and he couldn't even walk a straight line, dude. To the courthouse. He's literally he's on trial for having probed this poor man. Who knows if he wasn't, I mean, I don't know if he was poor or not, but like quite literally. But it was news, it was big news,
Right.
and it's interesting.
Ugh. Poor guy.
Yeah, no, 100%. They
Man.
worked that guy over, dude, that poor guy.
Sounds like it.
All right, so you ready? So here, I'm gonna give you. We'll let you chime in. There's no commentary? That's it. No more comment. Everyone is just so engrossed. We'd love for you if you have any questions, but because I'm gonna move to this Argosy story, and I'm gonna basically here's a talk about internal scandal, and I shared this story once before, but this one is something I lived through. And it's just a really ridiculous scam. And I wanted to share it with you guys all today. And quite honestly, I think it's the truth, and the truth will set you free, dude. You know what I mean? And it played a role in literally this is what tempered a lot of who I am today.
Really?
Because it was one of these moments, it was this watershed moment for me
Okay.
that changed how I relate, how I interact with casinos and bosses and
Okay.
kind of like, you know what I mean? So, okay.
This is Louisiana, right?
This is Louisiana.
Okay.
And I'm opening the Bell of Baton Rouge, okay? So I play a role as a trainer. And because the trainer they had sucked. And it was interesting because I show up and I'm there early. I'm there 3 minutes early to help open the property and go through all the, introductory stuff. It was my first time. So I didn't actually open Players. I went to Players at Lake Charles when it was already there for a month.
Okay.
And so like I just came in, the place was just packed and they had underhired and they needed help. And so in comes David. And I started there as a floor supervisor, and I'm making I think like 160, and the dealers are making like 500, and I was like, holy crap,
Figures,
dude.
yeah.
But it was a fantastic intro. I have the stories. I got to meet Cujo. You know the Cujo. You know the movie about the dog.
Yeah, the dog. Yeah.
Cujo lives, dude, or did live.
Really?
Cujo.
You met the dog?
Cujo jumped on my. I don't know if it was the original Cujo.
Yeah.
This was the bigger, badder ass Cujo. Jumped on my car. I had to live in this mobile home. They had no housing at the time, so I lived in this single wide mobile home in the back while Cujo ransacked the place. I was just terrified for like I lived there for the first 2 weeks. It was so awful, dude. You have no idea. And I almost left if not for my I told you my surveillance friend.
Yeah.
So he got this job at Argosy as director of surveillance. So I was like, thank you, Jesus, get me the hell out of this mobile home.
Jeez.
And then of course I moved to Baton Rouge. At first, there's no place to live. Also, because they weren't prepared for this influx of all these employees.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Probably where you.
Yeah, where I went to Kansas City, same thing.
Yeah, same
Same thing. Yeah.
So I move into this motel. I got bit by a black widow, dude, in like
Oh.
the first week. So I was like, welcome to Louisiana, dude. You know what I mean? All right, so I get there, and they already had. So I was there about 3 months before they were planning to open. But there were people who had arrived earlier to kind of start attracting dealers and train them up and create this other experience. So I get there, and I don't remember exactly how it all unfolded, but I meet one of the guys, a casino manager, who's a table game director, casino manager, and so he sends me over to. They have this little temporary training center, which they're eventually going to be like a hotel. And it's going to be like a staging area, because the boats had to sail.
Yes.
They had to go out. Our river boats, because it would, had to launch and go out. But they were building this like restaurant area, this little staging area, which I guess eventually became hotel rooms, stuff like this. But it was in the early stages. But they did have an area where they could train. So they had it was big empty space with tables in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And they had brought in these people they went from doing shrimp boats to training for craft dealing, you know what I mean? Quite literally, almost everybody went from shrimp boats and some fishing, because a lot of them worked in New Orleans.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They would take like 3 months off and do like the crab crawling, or I don't know what the hell it is.
Huh.
So I run into this the dice instructor, whoever's teaching them dice, and I meet some of the dealers, and they're all like, listen, this guy sucks. Like we have no idea. This guy
And they
is the
didn't even
worst.
know.
And I didn't know the dude.
No, they didn't know. They didn't know crabs.
They didn't know anything. They didn't know the games. But they're like, dude, I'm zero confidence I'm going to be a dealer. And they were having a hard time trying to like figure out. So he's like, well, can you help can you help train this dice? And I'll be like, listen, I'll be honest with you, man. I'm not one of those dealers that thinks at the time, you hear, like, we're always commiserating about everybody knows dice, thinks they can teach dice.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's not, it's just not a thing, because people learn different ways.
Yes.
And so anyway, so I go over there, and one of the guys that worked there, was very confident. I had been a good dealer, dude. I really paid attention. I practiced, and I really enjoyed dealing dice. So I start teaching it, and kind of it comes to find out that it's harder than you think, teaching dice.
Yeah.
And I had to kind of retrain myself a few times to kind of like, because you can see that when they don't get it, you can see that they're not getting it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like you have to start having new conversations and look at new ways
Yes.
of interacting, because what you take for granted isn't always true. People just don't get it the same way, right?
Yep.
Well, anyways, so I became, because of the success we had, I get promoted. I become a pit manager. And so I became the craps pit manager. You know, you don't see a lot of those in Vegas anymore, right?
Right.
It's mostly like shift bosses,
Yeah.
assistant shift bosses. But I literally had 4 dice games that we were going to go live with. And I had to learn everything about being a pit manager. I'd only been a floor supervisor. The closest I came to being a pit manager was when Casino Boardwalk opened, and Norman put me over there. Fantastic guy from a holiday. I know.
Oh, yeah?
Norman. I'm sure his name is Norman. I'll have to look him up, but I'm pretty sure it's Norman. And I got to meet one of Bugsy Siegel's crap dealers.
No kidding.
And that's how he had accumulated the property. He literally made all that money out of the Flamingo
Really?
and walked across the street, bought all that land.
Yeah.
He would talk shit about Steve Wynn every single minute you'd let him. All you had to do is say, "What about that Steve Wynn?" And he would just light him up. You know who he's good friends with? The Klondike Inn guy.
Oh, yeah?
So the Klondike Inn guy, by the way, the Klondike Inn guy, I don't know what his name is, big tall guy. He would wear the biggest, fattest, one of those golden nugget, the tacky ass golden nugget, like the nugget rings, the gold. He would,
Yeah.
and those guys would talk shit, and I would sit there. We would be dead. You know what I mean? This
Yeah.
is, you remember Butterbean and all those guys?
Yeah.
Butterbean was our host.
No kidding.
Butterbean was our host, was our casino host.
Oh, man.
That fat bastard would sit there squeezed into. Oh God, I got so many stories for you guys. All right, I want to segue, but the first time I run into Butterbean, dude, he's trying to squeeze into. I hope, is he out there? Is he still around, Butterbean?
I don't know.
So he's sitting in one of they have this little dining area, this like cafe that you could walk into, and he has somehow managed to squeeze his ass into this booth, and he's just not happy about it. He's like, but he's such the nicest guy, you know what I mean? But he wants to sit somewhere so people can come up and say hello. He's like literally the nicest guy. But you know, is he still alive? But he's not a little guy either. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I go in there, and all it is like him going, "Can't anybody get can't you get some kind of a hacksaw we can move this table for?" Because this table was stuck. Like this poor bastard just couldn't. And he was hilarious. He was such a nice guy, man. He was fantastic. He wasn't there for long, I don't think. But we also had Fat Elvis.
Oh, yeah?
We had Fat. You remember Fat Elvis?
I remember that.
So
it was a
Fat Elvis.
Yeah.
So Fat Elvis used to have this car, and Fat Elvis introduced me to the Double King burger at Fat Burger. Did you know that they'll give you 4 patties? It's like a pound of burger. It's like a Double King. It's not even on the menu. And Fat Elvis would just take that to town, dude. And when we say Fat Elvis, that was his name. That was his moniker. He was one of the lounge acts, and he would sit in the back of his car. And so I remember, I'm talking to Fat Elvis one day on our way to Fat Burger, and he's like, yeah, what about those? He's like, you think I can make it in? Because he was trying to see if compared to Butterbean, Fat Elvis was bigger than Butterbean. There's no way he could have made it in that cafe. You know what I mean? Like Butterbean barely made it. Fat Elvis had no shot. He had to sit in the back of his car, dude. He had to modify his own car to sit in the back seat, dude. He literally has a car. He had this old Cadillac, and or Oldsmobile, whatever Elvis had when he was a Cadillac. Was it Cadillac?
Cadillac, yeah.
Yeah, he had to sit in the back. I'm not even kidding you, man.
Right.
Just to get to the you know what I mean? He had this whole modified. But anyways, I digress. Okay, back to Argosy. That's a little bit, yeah. So here I am. I'm at Argosy, and we have all these. We're getting ready to open, and I'm learning how to be a pit manager. And I have this really wonderful. I forget what the guy's name was, but he was kind of this skinny guy. He had worked at Horseshoe for many years, and he was like my mentor. I mean, he literally had a lot, because I was young. I was really young. I was the youngest manager at that property. Remember, I'm not a floor supervisor. I'm a pit manager.
Right.
But he enjoyed so much how I had evolved the class and the discussions I had. He made me a pit manager. But I had to learn how to Mike dice. I had to learn how all the gaming conventions, you know what I mean? I had to really learn the podium, how everything moves and all the responsibilities and everything else, opening and closing games. I had only opened up to that moment. No, that's not true. I'd open and close a game. But anyway, so I had to really kind of learn. And not too long into me being a pit manager, I got promoted to assistant shift boss. So that was the highest I've ever worked on the thing. But anyway, so he sits me down. He brings me in his office. And he's like, "Listen, I need to send over your assistant, your backup pit manager for dice." And he's like, and I'm in his office, and I'm like, "Well, why are you telling me, just hire whoever? I mean, I'm not even part of that process." I'm assuming like everybody's been hired. He's like, well, no. He's like, this is kind of a special case. I'm like, well, what kind of a case? He's like, well, he's got a little bit of experience, but you may need to help him along. Me? Help him along? You help me along. Like, you know what I mean? Like, who am I going to help along necessarily, right? So apparently this person had worked for 6 months as a dealer in Biloxi or Gulfport, or, you know what I mean? He had worked at 6 months, that's it. And they were sending him to work with me. And this was the first introduction I had to, it's a juice job. You know what I mean? Like, this guy had no experience, no business being that, but he was a local. He was literally a Baton Rouge local. And he was, what I would come to find out, he was somehow related to, whatever mob they had working down there. Whatever. So I won't go into his name, and I guess you can come look for me now. But I used to never mention a few parts of this. You follow?
Right.
So here's what happens. On the very first day. Well, let's scroll back, because hopefully, because this is a true story, and so we are out. The boat is out one time. This is how you had to take these boats out and test them out. Remember,
Yes.
Before you actually open, everybody
Yes.
had test runs, everybody in
Yes.
their position, and then there was all the Coast Guard shit.
Yes.
The life preserve, all this stuff,
Yes.
because you're on water.
Yeah.
And so we're out and about. The Coast Guard boards us, right? We do that because we know they were going to board us. They didn't just like pull us over in the water. We knew that they were going to make sure all the lifeboats and the life preservers, and then everybody. They had this thing where if you went to the front of the boat, you had to have your life preserver on. Like, you had to have this. You had to be reactionary. Certain people did this. Certain people did this to help everybody. It was this whole drill.
Right.
So Coast Guard comes in now. We had heard that Argosy was going to make sure that there were no bribes. So whatever the local mobs or the local bosses or whatever the fucking politics were, everybody had their hands out apparently, and they were not happy that Argosy did not want to pay off anybody, because Baton Rouge was as corrupt as you could ever imagine. Okay, Louisiana was corrupt. And I had never experienced this. I mean, I'm not naive. I know there's a lot of corruption and people take bribes and everything else. But I never knew like a whole town and all of its politicians and all of its, you know what I mean? And I don't say that lightly. Like, there's just like, everybody wants to get paid.
Yeah.
Here comes a casino. We want our piece.
Right.
It was the first casino. Then came Casino Rouge later, but first casino. I have to build up the story so you know exactly how this happened and why I was in the center of it. So, my understanding is Argosy doesn't want to pay anybody. They don't want to pay off anybody, period. And we're already hearing rumors of, people aren't happy. There are dealers or not dealers, supervisors that are, let's say, not getting threats, but are being told, hey,
Oh, really?
you better talk to somebody, because this is not going to go well for this casino. Like, we're, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you can't help but, because, remember, a lot of us are from Vegas or Atlantic City. We're not used to this.
Right.
You know what I mean? If you're local, maybe this is a common thing. But if you're not, this is kind of weird. Like,
Yeah.
why are we we're just working here? You know
Right.
what I mean? And so so the word goes out, listen, we here as supervisors, Argosy is not going to pay. No one's going to pay. Everything, we're going to open, and it's going to be totally legit, and nothing's going to happen. Okay, so here's what happens. We get pulled over by the Coast Guard. Coast Guard boards the flipping casino. And instead of going to the preservers or the lifeboats, the preservers, you know what they do? They audit the blackjack tables. Yeah, I walked them off. I was literally not the lead person, but I was there in a blackjack game, and they're all closed. All the blackjack games are sealed. They're all locked up, and we have one of the blackjack tables where we have been using to do live training, right? And there is how we have rolls of quarters?
Yeah.
And there was a broken roll of quarters. You know how you break the quarters and
yeah.
then you leave the loose quarters out there.
Right.
So the Coast Guard, by the way, the Coast Guard knew exactly, this was a Coast Guard officer or enlisted, or someone with the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard, a federal agency.
Right.
They knew the game to go to, and they asked us to run down the quarters. So every casino does a soft count on the table. When they do a table card, the table card doesn't go down to the last 25-cent piece.
No.
It's always rounded to some even amount, a 0, a 5 maybe. all casinos do that because it's not intended to be a hard count. A hard count is also referred to as when you count the coins, but a hard count is the exact amount of money that came in and came out. Okay, so that's like literally the official count. And casinos have, the bean counters are back, and they're working out those numbers when they collect the money and everything else. But when supervisors close a game and they count down the money, we're literally told to round it off to the nearest zero, basically. So if it's a stack of quarters, let's say, and let's say, a roll of quarters is $10.
Right.
And let's say there is $9.50, 2 quarters are missing. It's $10.
$10, right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Now, there's a casino I worked with not long ago where you always took off that last $10. You always rounded it down to the zero. They always left whatever the 50-cent pieces. And it's their prerogative. Every casino does it. Like, it's a standard practice,
Yeah.
okay? And Argosy opens a lot of properties. It was a very well-respected, company.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of people in my experience. Almost everybody who's worked for Argosy has had fairly good experiences. Benefits are good. Opportunity was good. You know what I mean? They didn't mess around. But here, this Coast Guard person comes on, and he's asking me, why isn't it say $9.50? And I'm explaining to him because that's not how we audit the table. That's not how these fill slips work. You know what I mean? Now, I'm a young guy. I don't know how to explain the whole back of the house bean counting experience. I
Right.
still don't.
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell they go through. Auditing, I'm sure accountants, everybody plays a role. And he's very disappointed in me. And I'm like, why are you disappointed in me? I don't know what other answer you want, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Like, we're all, and by the way, I'm in a life jacket. I'm in a life preserver. I have a life preserver
Yeah.
on in
And
the
you're-
middle of a
yeah.
casino pit.
Yeah.
Trying to explain how a fill works, how this
To the Coast
inventory
Guard.
to the Coast Guard. You know what I mean?
You
Can
can't make this
imagine?
up.
No, you can't make this shit up. We're all wearing life preservers, and you know what I mean? It's just the silliest thing. And so,
man.
anyway, so here's the thing: they shut us down. We're supposed to open. I don't know, 2-3 days later, we got shut down for 2 weeks.
For 50 cents.
For 50 cents. I don't think it was like $1.50,
Okay.
just to be exact. I think it was more than 50. It was like $1.50.
All right.
And so, first of all, no one knows how the $1.50 was missing. We were talking about it later, like, how is there some missing quarters? Because all the rolls should have been full. Like, we were doing it as a training.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
who took $1.50 out of this roll? So even that was a little suspicious. And why did he go to that game? And why did he have that question? You know what I mean? It's like he was just ready to go. Now, interestingly, I come to find out later, a lot of these Coast Guard guys, they come from the areas that they live because they know those waterways. It's not like in the Army. Like in the Army, I go to Boston Maps. That's how I went into the Army through Boston. And I end up in Fort Ord, California. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't going to be,
Yeah.
Boston, right?
Right.
But a lot of these Coast Guards, because they work the waterways that they know. They grew up in these waterways, especially Louisiana, the bayous and everything else. They literally, so they're like locals.
Yeah.
But they're in a federal, they're working for a federal agency.
Yeah.
So what I do know is after that happened and we get shut down, because we're supposed to open the property. We had a schedule based on us opening, assuming that we were going to go through. Most of us don't know. When I say most of us, there's a couple of us that are higher level employees, either pit manager, shift boss. And we would always meet at the same place. We would interact with each other, and we were getting to know each other. There was this one specific bar we would go to, and so the rumor was that Argosy, didn't want to pay, and them having the Coast Guard shut us down was like, hey, if you don't pay,
Right.
that's literally like, you have
Wow.
no idea what you're dealing with here. You follow? Now, I'm not Argosy. I'm not their lawyers. I'm not their investigative body. Like this is just what we understand as employees, right? Then all of a sudden, the word comes down that we got clearance to open. And literally, so we get this information. Someone comes into the bar that we're all hanging out at one night and tells us, hey, we got a schedule. We're going to open on such and such a date. We finally got things worked out.
Mm.
And this person leaves, and the rest of us are like, Argosy paid. There's no way that Argosy didn't pay. Or someone
Right.
paid someone somehow,
Yes.
okay? So here's an interesting, ready? Gets better, dude. Just wait for it, man. Wait till I get to McDonald's, dude. Wait till the McDonald's comes in because you guys, you'll have, this is like, listen, this is my life. This is how my life, and you wonder how I ended up dealing with the thing. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the universe. It's like, what I did in a past life to deserve some of this shit, or how I built this. You know what I mean? You know what's funny? I think that in some cases I needed all this crap to happen in order for all this good stuff to happen now.
Yeah.
That's what I sum it up as that.
Yeah.
Quite honestly.
Yeah.
I needed all of the gray and darkness to just be there, and then I
Yes.
was able to break through, and now it's just nothing but light.
Yes.
You know what I mean, or as much as
believe that.
possible. You follow?
I believe it.
All right, so you ready? So we opened. We have. It's going to be opening day. My boss, my mentor, comes over to me and gives me an envelope or 3 envelopes. And in those envelopes, I'm told that there's going to be 3 people showing up at the entrance that are going to be boarding, and they're going to wait off to the side. And these are VIPs. Each one of them gets an envelope. That's all I'm told. Don't open the envelope. Don't think about the envelope. Just go and give each of them their envelopes. Okay? And I'm like, why? You know what I mean? Why me? Because the dice pit was the first thing to the door. I would be the first person to get the thing.
Yeah.
By the way, I know that's not exactly how it happened. So it happened a little differently. These 3 people show up first. They confront me and ask me where their envelopes are. That's what happened.
Ah.
And I go to my boss, who gives me 3 envelopes, and it's clearly cash in the envelopes. You can see that it's cash in the envelope. I mean, it's hard to.
Yeah.
It's just cash in the envelopes.
Right.
And I literally, there are 3 people. They come to the door because I don't know how they come to the door and God, I don't know. It's like it's been so long.
It's all right.
But so I bring them the envelopes, and I remember one of them very specifically because I had seen him on the news. He was a local rep. He was either a state rep,
okay.
a counselor, something like this. And at that point, I was so disgusted with myself. First of all, I had no way to say no. I had no way to opt out. I was just given a order, and I did that. However that exchange happened, right?
Yeah.
And I went back to my pit, and I thought to myself, well, because I had this great job. I thought, oh, it doesn't end here. Trust me. There's Burger King. Until it gets to Burger King, and even after Burger King, it goes on a little bit. So bear with me, because it gets more interesting, strangely enough. But I realized that not everything is, this is where David starts growing up as a part of the business, When I went through Vegas originally, I knew nobody, I had no credit, no money, I really didn't have a lot to work with.
Yeah.
You follow?
Yeah.
I was in a very strange relationship. I had a very unique dynamic with a woman, which at that time was not all that, wasn't looked on favorably. Let's just say. I don't want to go into all that.
Yeah.
But I didn't have a whole lot of opportunity. I had 0 opportunity because no one, then I met a few people. I go to Louisiana, and I'm thinking to myself, like, wow, look at this. I got a mentor, I got people, and now I'm handing off bribes, basically. I just assumed automatically they were bribes. These people being paid off. Now, maybe they were given promo money. I didn't actually go into the envelope. Maybe it was the funny money. Maybe it's the kind of funny money that we have for sale. Maybe it wasn't, crisp $100 bills with which to play at the casino. Maybe it was something else. I'm not really sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Thankfully, none of them played on dice that day, so it made it easier. I went back to my dice pit, which is literally right there. I started working the games. Okay. Fast forward, nothing. Literally, I'm working there. I'm there for a couple months, and I'm actually there for about 6 months. I got this guy who is who's working for me. He's the assistant pit manager, and me and him, he doesn't know dice, dude. He doesn't know anything about dice. Whatever he did in Biloxi, whatever he was, it was unrelated to dice.
Right.
And it's so difficult because it's so when you have all these break-in dealers, and then you have their supervisor who doesn't know anything.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, what are you doing? What do you? So I'm literally just. The great thing about it is it was essentially one long shift. You know what I mean? Like we that was all there was, and then the boat would shut down overnight.
Right.
You follow?
Yeah.
So I was just running my, how do you learn how to watch 4 games at the same time? David, just head on a swivel, buddy. You know what I mean? Head on a flipping swivel. The only thing that sucked is the days I had to work as backup shift, and then I had to run down tables and do markers, stuff like this. I had to get out of the pit, and then holy crap, But all of my dealers complained about this dude, and this dude apparently knew a lot of locals, and he was always talking sports, and come to find out he's a local sports bookie.
Ah.
He's a local sports bookie.
Okay.
All right, so there's a point where one of my dealers comes up to me and he's like, David, I was just told to give this guy $500. And I'm like, okay, what do you mean? Well, they had me move a stack of green, and just push it off to this one guy. And they said it was fine, just go ahead and do it. And it was literally my backup pit manager, my backup pit manager. And I'm like, well, was there a marker? Was there checks? Was there anything? Was there a bet? No, it's nothing. And it's a guy. And I asked the guy, I was like, hey, sir, what did you buy in for? And he's like, no, they owe me. And I'm like, who owes you? No, they owe me. This
That's a
guy's
thing.
going on, they owe me.
That's a thing.
And I'm like, who owes you, dude? And he's like, yeah, the guy, no, he just worked it out. He was trying to come up with a way to somehow get over this idea that he just was pushed out 500. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, oh, they owe me. Like, oh, from where, sir? Did you make a bet? Or, yeah, earlier we made a bet. This is our first cruise of the day, dude. Like, when earlier are we talking here? Like the night before, somehow before the boat went out. I mean, when earlier did you make a bet? And he's like, because I think I was on another. It just comes up with a bunch of crap. Now I realize I might have an issue, and so I follow up with this through surveillance, and I have them looking for stacks of green. Apparently, stacks of green going out, $500 checks, and it turns out it's been happening a lot.
Oh boy.
And my bookie buddy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Has been paying off losing bets on these crap tables by having dealers push out stacks of green to pay off $500. And strangely enough, the sweetest, the same kid, so nobody was ever in a position to tell me, because by the way, this guy is like almost 60 years old. I'm like 26 years old. You follow? 25, 26 years old. And no one thought to say anything about it because everyone but me knew who this dude was. Like, I had no idea. I had an idea that he was unsavory, he was hooked in, and you know what I mean? He always made me feel dirty, dude. We didn't talk or relate to each other. Every now and then he would come to that bar that we would all hang out with, and he always seemed, just so sleazy. You know what I mean? Like, to me anyways. He was always overdressed. You know what I mean? He's always trying to get one over and talk real sleek, and he just always seemed very out of place.
Yeah.
For most of us as supervisors that have come from Vegas and we're experiencing different lives, you follow?
Yeah.
And so this goes on for, I don't know how long it went on for, we just traced it back a little bit. So the dealer that had told me was like the sweetest young man, you know what I mean? Like he was the one person that stood out in class. He came over to me and told me at one point that my teaching was terrible. And he was very honest, but he was very honest about, listen, we're not having the best, we need you to do this or that. And he was very constructive. Yeah, Dennis is like, he was very constructive about my teaching. Let me just say this.
Right.
But he's just a sweet, and I had a real affinity for this dealer. He's just a fantastic human being. And he later on when I was able to have a conversation before a bunch of other shit happened, he just thought that I wanted to protect myself. He wanted to protect the game. He wanted to do right. And one of the lessons I have, dude, is if you get busted for this stuff, you go down with the ship, dude.
Right.
You ain't coming back to gaming. No one's gonna want you. You fall afoul and you make these choices, these bad choices anytime, you're screwed.
Right.
You know what I mean? You ain't working again. All right, so here's what happens. I call surveillance. I find out that this has been going on. I get called into my casino manager's office. The guy who is now not so much my mentor, by the way. You know what I mean? After the whole bill thing, I've kind of gone out of my way to kind of. I mean, I'm one of these people that does not leave a lot unsaid, and if I know that you're compromised, like I treat you like you're compromised,
right?
Without even knowing that I'm treating you like you're compromised.
Yeah.
Like I would avoid him. I used to go out of my way to say hello and engage with him, and I'm sure I went out of my way to not do that again because I was just so flippin' disappointed. I was disappointed in Argosy. Whatever happened there, I'm not really sure. I don't know 100% what all happened.
Yeah,
how they got past the Coast Guard, the whole thing. Who knows? But those envelopes like really, really disturbed me. You know what I mean? It really made me think twice about everything, my career, everything I was doing. He put me in that position. Can you imagine? It's like you being a drug mule in the airport. You show up at the airport. You don't even know you're a drug mule. Someone just switched the bag. Next thing you know, you're running through customs, and now you're in a Russian prison, getting bent over 24/7. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, I never want to be in that position, without knowing about it first. You know what I mean? If the benefit's there, you know what I mean? But anyways, no. But no, that's not for me, dude. You
Right.
know what I mean?
I get it,
That's
yeah.
just not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's more than just the money and this one thing. Yeah, you could say, well, I don't have any culpability. You do. You know what I mean? It's just like, I pay these people off, and it was a total scam. So, anyways, so he calls me into his office. You know what he tells to me? He says it just like this. I don't remember the exact words, but it's like this. You have a choice, David. You can either file a complaint or we can just let this go right now. We can just let it
Really?
go.
Wow.
And I'm like, well, what does let it go mean exactly? Like, what do you mean let it go? Like, well, just walk back into your pit and the day continues. Okay, well, what does that mean? A guy's like stealing however many, all this money, like from the book. Like, what did you do? You moved the guy in here to pay off his bets? Is that the deal? Instead of paying someone cash, you moved him onto the boat to pay. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is going through my head, by the way. I'm not having this conversation
Right,
out loud.
right.
You follow? But I'm
Yeah.
thinking to myself, like, oh my God, there's so many questions I have. Like, and
Yeah.
you know, a lot of people that follow us, they kind of know me, and you can only imagine. I'm a very direct person. I don't leave a lot unsaid, and it was very difficult for me to hold my tongue.
I bet.
I didn't care because if you have met me, I could care less. It doesn't make me nervous that you're a flippin' rich. It doesn't make me nervous that you're powerful. I can care less about that. You want to take me out? Take me out. I put my pants on. I have my coffee in the morning. I spend the next 20 minutes in the bathroom. You know what I mean? I'm like every other 50-ish, you know what I mean, person.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
We're all human beings. We got blood. We have needs. We have not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The rest of it's nonsense. I really do find that. And anyone that puts themselves somewhere else, it's all bullshit too. Most of them just smell their own fart. But so here I am in this room with this guy who's telling me just to forget everything and move on with my life. And he's like, well, you can make a report. You can report it. You can file a report. Because apparently surveillance even. Dude, can you imagine? Surveillance saw this. When I say this, they were actually downstairs. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Surveillance saw this, and they were willing to let it go
Let it
too.
go.
Everybody's
yeah.
willing to let it go.
Yeah.
You follow?
Something's up.
What the hell
Yeah,
is
right.
this? I'm the
Yeah.
guy now. I'm the one that's in trouble. And you know what I said? I'm gonna write a report. I did.
Did you?
100%. You know what's the most interesting thing about this whole thing? This was one of the best points in my life up to then, until I had, I had a son, and that experience is fantastic. But I was poor, and I was evicted. I was homeless. I went through this whole process of trying to just, be a man and learn a lesson. I don't even know what the hell I was trying to learn.
Yeah.
Just to get to somewhere.
Right.
Where I didn't even have my own car at this point. You have any idea? I didn't even own my own car at 25 years old. I was borrowing a car in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I had very little money in the bank. I had terrible credit rating. And guess what? I didn't even do drugs, dude. You'd think drugs would be the root of that. You know what I mean? I didn't even do drugs. And so here I am sitting in front of this dude, and I realized that if I tell him I'm going to write a report, my life's going to suck. I knew right away, dude. I'm going to go right back to the same suckage I came from. Because, by the way, I was making over $300 a day in the 90s, guaranteed salary. I had an upward, momentum. I was assistant ship boss at 25-ish. You know? I was on my way.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I was on my way. I could have written my own ticket. Even to this day, I would tell you, if people ask you if you have one regret, it was a little bit of a regret, only in that I wish I could have somehow done something else. But anyways, trust me, the Burger King's coming. Burger King's coming. Wait. So I'm sitting in there across from him, and he's, by the way, I've always worked out. I've always been, stocky guy and a little beefy and stuff like this. And the guy I'm talking to, my mentor, casino man, he's really skinny, awkward, smoking. You know what I mean? He's like this old school boss. He might have a week to live, or he might die, tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? He looked like this guy from, anyways, he just looked like he was old school, dude.
Yeah.
He couldn't put any more drugs, alcohol, or smoke in his body. You know what I mean? He was all in, dude. Casinos, you know what I mean? So working all the polls, all that stuff. And here was the guy who was literally going, this is my future. He had no future. And he was going to suck the life out of my future, just like that.
Right.
And I literally, the words came out of my mouth, and when I first heard the words come out of my mouth, I didn't believe it. I was told a long time ago that I speak before I think. My grandfather would always tell me I speak before and this is one of those times but I feel like it was. I've always felt like it was the right choice. It gets better though. Okay, I always feel it was the right choice. Because it was the right choice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
and today I know it was the right choice.
Right.
But man, did it have a cascade effect. Let me tell you what happened next. You ready? I go back to the pit, and I get a call, and I'm asked to leave the casino. And I'm told, so I pick up the phone, and it's not my friend who is, but someone else who is a surveillance supervisor. I'm asked to leave the casino because I'm now part of an investigation.
Oh my.
And I have to take, an LOA leave of absence. I'm part of an investigation.
Mm-hmm.
So I, you know who doesn't leave the casino?
Bookie.
The bookie. The
That's
bookie doesn't
crazy.
leave the casino. I leave the casino. But
Wow.
but it gets better. It gets better. Okay. So I leave the casino. I go to my house in my borrowed car, and I stew a little bit trying to figure out where does this go? Well, no one contacts me for a couple of days. Like no one. I hear from nobody. No one on the boat contacts me. Literally no one contacts me for a couple of days.
Jeez.
I go to remember that bar. I go
Yeah.
to that bar that I had that we were allowed to think because now I'm trying to figure out. What the hell, dude?
Right.
I mean, I'm assuming I'm getting paid because I'm listed as an active employee, and I'm assuming I just have no schedule. So I assume I'm either getting paid or whatever the case is. But now I need to figure out what's been said, what's going on. And do you know who's there? The bookie. The bookie's there talking to my group of friends who, meanwhile, was never there. And as I'm approaching the group, one of the girls from the group who I know personally, somewhat intimately actually, comes over to me and says, "This isn't the best place for you."
Wow.
And so I leave, and now I'm just in an absolute quandary of what's going on, you know what I mean? Because again, I'm just a dude from Vegas who's been, you know what I mean? This is all happening very quickly, and I'm starting to get very nervous and scared for what am I going to do?
Right.
And by the way, I don't have a ton of money. I have no money. I've just now started to make money. I borrow a car. I don't have I can't make a move to jump. I don't even have a job in Vegas. I'm just Argosie's not even in Vegas. You can't just there's no
Transfer. Yeah.
There's no transfer to Vegas.
Yeah.
Argosy has nothing in Vegas. They own players. They actually took over. They did have a role. Some role in one casino. But anyways, so I finally get a call from an investigator who tells me, listen. We want to meet with you, but it has to be a neutral place. So would you mind meeting us at Burger King? Yeah, they want to meet me at the Burger King, local Burger King. And he introduced himself. He's like, I'm the lead investigator for Argosy. We want you to meet up at the Burger King. There was a Burger King. I don't remember exactly where it was, somewhere in Baton Rouge. And, I'm very excited. I get to meet someone and tell my side, hopefully get my job back and move on and the whole thing.
Yeah.
And we sit down at this Burger King. Okay, I meet them at the damn Burger King, and it's the middle of the day, and it's a Burger King.
Yeah.
And the first thing out of this man's mouth is, I want to give you a chance right now to decide how you would like to move forward.
Man, it's like you're the bad guy.
I'm the bad guy.
Yeah.
It's Argosy. It's a lead investigator for Argosy, which I have been going through my storages because I saved his card at one point and trying to get the card because it gets better. So he tells. So then they don't lead into anything like it's going to go barely, nothing like this. So he explains to me. He says, "Listen," he's like, "all I want to do is tell you that if we move forward with this investigation, you can never work at the Bella Baton Rouge again. We would need to find you a new job." That's the start of the whole conversation. You can't work at the Bella Baton Rouge. I want to take that. He says, I want to take that right off the table because we're dealing with people who are not going to humor us. They're not going to like that you're there. And we would rather that they not find out that you are the person who it would not go well for you for them to find out that you started this investigation. And do you know that, by the way, that after
Wow.
that conversation with this dude scared me so much, I didn't talk about it for, how long has it been? Over 20 years. I would say probably 25 years. I didn't talk about it.
Wow.
I literally never, there are a few people that know about it. There's actually people that I was really intimately involved with, that were really good friends of mine, who they think I abandoned them. they think that 1 minute I'm part of their life, I'm in their life, I'm part of their whole thing,
Yeah.
and they think I didn't abandon them. I had no choice. It got worse than that. So basically, they knew that I had showed up at that bar, and Guido, I say Guido, he was an Italian guy. No, take away from an Italian guy. Just call him a little. But Bookie, we'll call him Bookie Dude.
Bookie, yeah.
Bookie Dude was already laying knew that something was up, and was afraid that something could go sideways. So apparently, not too long after, or a day or the next day, he was also put on leave. Argosy made the decision to remove him from the casino floor, since I was moving ahead from this investigation. And because he had been at that bar, he was aware that I was already on leave, which is why this girl, her name was Meredith, who came up to me, told me, this is not a good place for you, right? Because there was already wind that something was happening. I am placed on leave, and I really don't know. I don't know what everybody knew, to be honest with you. I don't know how all that was going down at the time. So I meet these investigators, and they're like, well, if the dude knows it's you or sees you, it could go very badly for your health. Like your health could be in jeopardy. Your life could be in jeopardy.
Wow.
Like, I kid you not. Like our recommendation is for you to leave town, and we are going to help you transition to another position. You follow? Now, I didn't do that right away. I took his business card, and I actually completed a comprehensive report. And I remember, all I did was listen to this dealer, follow up on surveillance, and at that point, it is all this sort of verbal, this is what happened.
Yeah.
And I was, you know what I mean?
Right.
It wasn't until that day at Burger King, I put pen to paper and wrote out exactly that experience. You follow?
Yes.
And interestingly, what I should have written in there was the table game director told me to move the fuck on, let's be honest. So that's what he wanted me to do. Just walk back in that pit like nothing happened and move the hell on. I should have put in that your asshole investigator that you sent here, I should have put that in the report too, hoping that it would get there. But I knew that, it's also telling me, listen, you know what I mean? This is the way. And here I am. I'm a young man, dude. You know what I mean?
Right.
I've already been through a lot, and now I'm just being completely shut off from reality.
Yeah.
I know this guy. The saving grace for me was I meet this guy, and this is where the story of me winning all that money in Biloxi.
Oh yeah.
So I know this guy who is just like the sweetest man, and we start going and playing. So he literally lets me stay in a house of his that's far away. I don't want to I don't want everybody to connect too many dots, but he lets me stay at this house, and I have a couple months to kind of deal with this, and then we're going out and gambling and things like this, and then we end up at Biloxi, win all this money, and of course, you remember I never had a car.
Right.
He helps me get a car. I win all this money.
Nice.
And if you wonder why I spent all the money for a car, because I needed a car to get back to Vegas. And when I walk back to Vegas, I assumed I'd be able to get a job, but I needed a car that I knew I could be reliable. And having a car, by the way, back in the day, bus transportation kind of sucked out here. So having a car was important to get a better job. So it gave me more options to get around. Otherwise, I had to just work on the Strip or downtown. So like when I came back, I was able to go to work for. I thought I was going to work for Players. Players had a casino in Mesquite before it became Casablanca. Originally, that's what I was offered a job working there, going back to Players and working there. And instead, I ended up pivoting to the Santa Fe before it was Station. Before Station bought them, and so that's how I ended up at Station. And luckily for me, I have this car, and I can go up there.
Right.
But that's my sort of scandal story. There's a few other things. It was one of the most difficult times in my, I have to say, in my entire life, because I had always assumed that because he had a relationship in Baton Rouge and he was somehow hooked up or whatever, that would somehow transfer. It didn't follow me back to Vegas. The good news is that I came to Vegas with a clean slate. Everyone who I had known, or the thing that sucked is I had to leave behind some really wonderful people, and I really loved Baton Rouge. I can't even begin to tell you. I had some really, I loved Mardi Gras in New Orleans. I went there for the first time a couple of times. and I love the people, I love the food. It was one of these places where I felt, I had this home that got flooded out like 3 times, and every time it got flooded out, everybody would like, get together and help, and you know what I mean. It's very weird, very really a very amazing sense of community that I never had before. I was never part of my experience. Vegas doesn't have that.
Right.
Boston never had that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But this town, it's like, because Baton Rouge is both like it's like a big little city. You know what I mean?
Okay.
It's strange. There's like 500,000 people. Or let's see, I don't remember, maybe 200,000 people in I live, something like this. But it was really a wonderful city. I mean, I got to meet really wonderful people, and I had to leave, and I couldn't tell them why.
Right.
Because I didn't want them to be part of that.
Part of it, right?
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And at the same time, it was hard for me to say, for me, I thought it was better. I'm just going to leave. You know what I mean? And I remember running into someone years later who was very upset that I had taken off because I had become, I really had wonderful friends. I mean, it was a great experience, and quite honestly, I didn't even share this story with her, that I am now. I just felt like, it was easier just to say, well, it's just irresponsible David, and I got scared, and I had to go back to Vegas for whatever. I don't remember what I had. But I never wanted to share this story. I was always afraid of like the judgment and the truth and it following me. You follow?
Right.
You know what I mean? That I had been, part of this. And then of course, people label like, well, you ratted the guy out. Well, he was a rat. You know what I mean? He was a rat. I didn't rat him out. You know what I mean? Like he was already a rat. He was literally the reason why, people don't, the reason why casinos have surveillance. By the way, this kind of thing doesn't happen nowadays. Like this would never happen in a modern Vegas, a modern corporate Vegas. You know?
Right.
There are stories. I will tell you. I know of rumors of things that go on that are literally just that. They're very much rumors. But there's most human resources departments now are safe places for people to go.
Yes.
And participate and unload and be honest. You know what I mean? And
Right.
thrive and all those other things. Like you're not going to have a gangster's not going to show up and own your hopefully. And if it does, I mean, drop something in the box. I mean, I don't know. I guess I don't have the right answer for everyone.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But it's amazing. Like, okay, remember this is like in the mid '90s. So how much our business has transitioned, right?
Right.
That's why I find even to this day, like the whole surveillance thing has always been very interesting to me, and the ways like because I was under so many of the wrong impressions, right, of the kind of activity that they're looking for, what they follow, what they want to lean into, and all of it's nonsense. The person they're watching is the dealer,
Yes.
the supervisor, the security guard. That's where 90% or more of the attention, and then every now and then the crazy person who's doing something crazy, and then you got to or you have the rack thieves and things like this, and all of that circulates through the casino. But more often than not, it's the people that work there.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That are the worst. They're the people that are trying to take advantage. They find ways, like this dude did, to pay off his bets. You know what I mean? He owed that guy. Why not? Use a crap game.
Right. Got all that money there.
I know it's just sitting there. Wait, it's just chips, dude. Just chips.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr.
Reno.
$20.
Oh my God, Reno.
Said I used to get watched. That's the only thing.
Oh yeah, that's true. Let's not go into Reno. I mean, it's interesting how there's also a lot of people that do things without understanding the consequences, right?
Right.
And who are just silly.
Yes.
And sadly, there's that. Like, if you work in a casino, it's not a game. Casinos are expecting a return on their investment. And it's amazing how many people come up and think like they get the chips and they get disconnected to it as cash, right? And then they'll put something somewhere and they think they can just pick it up, right? They make a wager, they now have a bet with the casino, or you know what I mean, and they think somehow they can pick it up without knowing, right? And it's the player's responsibility to teach them that no, that's real money, it's a real bet, and the casino is very interested in taking that from you, right? Now, if you win it, we're going to pay you, but if you lose, that goes over here to pay some bills. You follow? And you're not. This isn't for play. This is for real. This is for keeps.
Yes. Yes.
And as much as they've made Vegas into a fantasy land in many ways, it's still very, very, casinos are very, very, very serious. And I will tell you this. The funniest thing I ever heard was the guy that went into Luxor I think the Luxor when it first opened. and he back when they had when they first opened, they had the dollar slots, the
Okay.
dollar slots,
Yeah.
with the tokens.
Yeah.
And this poor bastard went in there and got a hold of 3 bags, from the change person as they were trying to fill up the slot machine.
No kidding.
Now, have you ever held a bag of slot machines? It's like
heavy.
600 or 1,000, I believe, depending
Yeah.
on how they fill them. They're heavy as hell. And this poor bastard weighed like 300 pounds, dude. And he made it into the parking lot, and let's just say that his poor heart just gave out.
No kidding.
And that was the end of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you got to find a different target at that point, dude.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Jeez.
All right, what else you got? Anything?
Well, you've talked for so long that you kind of answered some of the questions.
Is everybody like us? Yeah, good. Does anybody have any? Oh, really? I've answered all the questions.
No, well, not all of them. Some of them just going off. So.
Oh, really? I don't mind going back for a minute. Let's answer what we can. Come on. Let's show them. Let's show some love. I'm pulling up my.
2 hours into it. So.
Are we really?
Yes.
Oh my God! All right, so 5 minutes of questions, dude. Let's do it.
There's no way we get through all of it. But,
Just give me a couple good ones, juicy ones.
does communications ever come from surveillance for wrong protocol, incorrect payouts? What's the process? Repeat the question.
Okay, so this person asked, what is the protocol for surveillance, calling down, and telling someone they made an incorrect payoff or something like this? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, whenever we caught it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many times that we had to do other things, like, the watching the drop, or if somebody, that's a big one too, I didn't tell you yet, but, if somebody fell and hurt themselves and they had to be checked out by an EMT, that was a focus
big.
too, because,
People
sue, right. And we had to watch if the ambulance came, we had to watch them drive off, so all that, but
Yeah.
if we did have a few minutes to cruise, the pit, if we did see an incorrect payout or a wrong procedure, we would definitely call down.
And so when surveillance calls down, they'll talk to a floor supervisor. The phone will ring in the pit. So every pit has a phone, has a way to contact that pit directly. Supervisor will pick up the phone. The surveillance person will identify, what base or what game and what was done incorrectly. The supervisor will go out and talk to the dealer, obviously. They'll verify, there's some sort of verification. Now, on a dice game, because there's a verbal component, it's not always cut and dry. Surveillance will call down, think they saw something. It may not be. I've had surveillance call down, and worked as a supervisor. Surveillance will call down. They think something should happen one way. It happened a different way because there was a verbal part of the bet that they didn't see. More often, if they call down on a blackjack game, those are bets that are easier to fix. Like those they can see, it's clearly they missed a quarter, or they didn't take someone's money, or something like that. And those are much more obvious from a surveillance perspective, from a top-down view. But a lot of times in craps, there's so many nuances and so many ways that, it's funny because I worked at one casino where surveillance, they just stopped calling down on dice. They were wrong so many times. We had a pit manager that was like, listen, just stop calling down, for the love of God. If it's big and it involves anything real, but there was a point where, I don't know what it was, overzealous surveillance operator or something like this, and would just constantly call down on every little thing without understanding literally how the game works. So you as a surveillance operator looking on a crap game and seeing bets on the pass line, and the dealer doesn't take a pass line bet, it may not be. So it may not be because they lost a pass line bet. They might have thrown up another bet, and the dealer just opted not to take the pass line bet in exchange for that. There's a lot of ways that the dealer can do things a little differently. It's not the right way, by the way. It's sort of out of procedure, of course. But there are ways. Just go to Bellagio if you want to see a lot of different procedures work themselves out. But dealers on crap games will do things differently. Let's say you have $10 in the field and $10 on the line, and the 3 craps rolls. The dealer may go, it's a push. You know what I mean? Because you're going to lose the line bet, and the field wins. You follow? Yeah. And instead of reaching out there and hitting, taking one and hitting the other, they'll just go like this and just let it stay because that's how you play it, right? Whereas surveillance is going to call down and go, hey, what happened? You got to pick up the pass line. No, it's kind of a push. We'll just tell the dealer in the future, please do the right procedure, that kind of thing. So that's usually, that's that. I think that answered that pretty well. All right, what else you got?
Really good question. Someone asked, how do they ensure the chips are real and not counterfeit? Repeat the question.
Okay, how do they ensure the chips aren't real or are real and not counterfeit? It's very interesting. I just read a story about a guy who quite literally raked in a shit ton of money replacing checks. Listen, These checks are very easy to counterfeit. The only saving grace for, so there's a company out there who I won't even mention because I'm not sure, but there's one company out there, they only make supplies for certified casinos. You have to be a casino. If you're an end user and you're buying chips from a manufacturer, guess what? That manufacturer does not make chips for the casinos anymore, okay? Used to be a thing. If you were able to order enough, they used to be able to go through this manufacturer buy, but that's no longer a thing. And I do know that they're trying to, casinos try to get ahead of, making these that are much. So they're very specific. It's actually not that hard, to be honest with you, to get away with it, especially if you stick with lower denomination. Higher denomination checks will always have some type of recording part of it now with new technology. They either use RFID or they use, there's two technologies that they use to track the checks. So like anything over 500 at most casinos, I think, is trackable.
Yeah.
Has its own signature, basically. You know it's yours, basically, okay? And if you go into Resorts World or newer casinos, it's all of them. Like literally every check is made with this technology. They pay the money because they don't want that ever to happen. But I will tell you, those controls have been, let's say shored up recently. And so that same guy who I think there's a YouTube video out there. It just came up on my feed, strangely enough. It's not happening a lot, and I personally don't know of any story related to that directly. Although I know that this person, I have heard of this person having gone and fabricated checks. Not recently, by the way. But if you came with a lot of dollar checks, you know how ridiculous, how much time you'd have to spend. Even if you got nickels, like what are you going to win? First of all, you're going to go out and spend. Even these composites are going to be 40 to 50 cents a piece, right? So you have to go spend a significant amount of money. If you get over fives, if you get to quarters, it's going to be harder for you to pass those, quite honestly. If you just start walking up with quarters, and they have to start crediting games. I mean, there's lots of ways you can get red flags, especially with higher limit checks. But with $5 checks, you might. But think about this. Let's say you go out and you get 5 stacks. You get literally a tray. You bring up your own tray of $5 checks. You paid, I don't know how much money you paid for them, and now what are you going to win? $500? Like, who cares? You know what I'm saying? It's almost not worth the effort. And again, if you're putting too many of these into circulation, eventually there's going to be some red flags. And newer casinos, of course, have the RFID, have the new tech where they can track it and see. And also the designs are very distinctive. So now they have, you see like even this check, the way it's the way it's fabricated, because these are a bit lighter with the plastic insert. So this is a composite check. Some of the checks that are made with clay are very graphic. And if you're a dealer, a good dealer, you'll see one that'll stand out almost right away, right? Because you get so used to just handling it one way, and the minute you get one that's different, it's different for a reason. So like I will come across, when I went dealer, sometimes they'll have these celebration checks or whatever, they're like honor, for an event or something like that. And they stand out like a sore thumb. Like really, they stand out like a sore thumb. You would have to get this exact design done. Now this one's not too hard, but anyways, it'd be tough. It's not easy. Okay, 2 more.
2 more?
Yeah, 2 more. Yeah.
Holy Roller.
Holy Roller.
Says, what should the player do if you overpay us, but we don't want to stop the game or slow down the game?
If you overpay, take the money, dude. Don't even do it. Don't even think about it. Casinos have a ton of money. No one cares. If they don't have a boxman or anybody checks, just take the money. It's your money. I know that that's not the most. Listen, every casino person I know that's a supervisor, if you don't want to slow down the game, they overpaid you, and you're in a position where if by interacting with the dealer, let's say you have a busy game, it's going to either somehow take away from the game. Like no one cares at that point. Just shut the hell up and take your money and enjoy it.
Right.
There's not a lot anybody can do. Like if you want to be real honest and throw it in, and say, hey, you overpaid me, but then you run the risk of like the dealer being, no. Now the dealer gets upset because you're trying to second guess. Just take the money, dude. It's not a thing. No one really cares unless they see it's not on you. The dealer paid you. Now if it's a gross amount of money and you're the only player there, and you're working over some poor break-in, and you know that they're doing, that's different. But if you're on an active game, you got 6 to 8 people, it's a big hand, a lot going on, dealer's under a lot of pressure, no one's caught the mistake, and it's not a whole ton of money to begin with, whatever the case is, just take the money.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I mean, I think that's the best bet, yeah.
Yeah.
Lucky Me says, is surveillance dealing with a lot of players claiming another player's bet?
Is surveillance what?
Is surveillance dealing with a lot of players claiming another player's bet?
Does surveillance deal a lot with another player claiming a bet? Oh, claiming another player's bet. You know what? It used to be so if you're ever wondering why they got rid of the big 6 and 8, that was literally why they got rid of the big 6 and 8. Because the big 6 and 8 on a crap table is literally just nothing but an ATM for a casino. The reason they got rid of it is because people fight over the big 6 and 8.
Yeah.
I have seen entire fights break out over the big 6 and 8, where someone makes a bet, and I'm sure this is what they mean, where you're betting in the field or somewhere, you put a bet down, and someone else picks up, it wins, someone else picks it up because they thought it was their bet, and so now you got to be like, hey, let's call surveillance, let's run it back. I'll be honest with you, so I've dealt with that a lot as a supervisor. Most supervisors have. I mean, people are always, especially in the field, dealers will lose track of what's going on in the field. I am very specific as a dealer to make everybody who bets the field bet in a very specific place or on a number. So that way, that's their number, dude. If I pay on that number, that's their money. Because 2 people would bet in the field, 1 minute, one person's distracted, now it wins. And now the person thinks that that's their first bet or something, right? And they start competing over it. I have actually seen 2 grown men roll onto, in fact, it happened at the Jerry's Nugget not too long ago, roll onto a table and get naked fighting over a field bet. Rip each other's shirts, have a drop down. Have a drop-down argument all over $5 bets.
Right.
They're having just nonsense. And so as a supervisor, here, you know what I do? I always, if it's $5, it's theirs, dude. The very first one, it's theirs, and now I'm like on the dealer to be very specific. And if it's a player, I want you to literally hear, the 3, you own the 3, the other player, it's on the 2, dude. You know what I mean? And God forbid you have more people betting the field than you have field numbers. You need to shut that game off. Everybody needs to go to a psychiatrist and figure out what the hell's wrong with them, okay? Because there's too many of you who need to learn the game. Or come to Casino Quest and learn how to play. You know what I mean?
Last thing.
Last one.
Final
Go ahead.
Chat
Wow, thank you.
said, this is from Reno.
Another one from Reno.
It says Reno podcast win.
That's his first podcast?
No. Reno's asking Reno podcast win.
Oh, the Reno podcast?
Win.
Reno, you ready, buddy? You ready to go all truth? I don't know. Well, I'd love to have Reno. I tried to have Reno on one of the shows, and he just couldn't talk to.
He couldn't talk.
Nah,
Reno?
Reno. Strangely enough, our Reno, but he was younger. He's matured now. He's an older, more mature young man. You know what I mean? All right, that's the last question. That's it. All right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that. That's our few different stories for you. A journey down a little bit of memory lane.
Yeah, it's fun.
And give you guys some insight on the surveillance part of it. So, what do you think, buddy?
Good, I like it.
This was your
Yep,
slow
thank you.
introduction
Yes.
to our community. All four of them. Thanks for attending. Minus Reno leaves 3, and the rest of you. By the way, we thank you so much. Really appreciate you being part of our community, and expect some really, really fantastic things. So, by the way, February 14th event, our Valentine's Day event, done. It's not going to be a thing, but wait for it. For 100% certain, if you're free, March 30th and 31st, we're having a 3-day. We're having a 3-day. It starts Friday night. That's going to be Friday night's going to be Patreon only invitation. We're going to have our own private suite. We'll hang out, and then on the 30th and 31st, we're going to have rooms and dinner and shows. It's going to be a 3-day fan event, and it's fantastic. So if you're available, so I'm waiting to get the dinner done and the hotel rooms done. And then I will post it. I'm trying to post it this weekend, so you guys can start making plans and plug in. But don't wait for it, because I'm trying to get you guys. I would love for us to all stay at the same place and have the same event. We don't have to shuttle around and communicate. We're trying to work with one of our partners, so I think you guys know who we're talking about. And so I want to get you rooms minus the resort fee, all that stuff. We're gonna have like a dinner together, at least one. Maybe even a movie. We'll all go hang out. There's a movie theater there. We'll go hang at the movies, and we're going to gamble our asses off. And we're going to all stay there. We're going to have a room there. We're all going to stay there. We're going to have this jumbo suite that we're going to share with everybody. Well, not everybody, because you all can't fit in there if we have enough of you. But we really want to just own this whole property, show them what our community can do, and create this experience moving forward. And this is going to be an open fan event, except for that Friday night. Friday night will be like a patron-only kind of thing. But the rest of you will have you. And we're hoping to roll out our very first So this magazine is a strategy guide, right? But it's got its little magazine qualities. It's a glossy thing. But we have this new magazine that's coming out. That's going to come out. If you're at the event, you will have the first copies in your hand that we're all going to sign, and that's going to be part of that experience. And I think you guys are going to love it, man. We're going to have a really good time. All right, we'll leave it at that. Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate you, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.